bespoke radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Well. Good evening. Fade to Black. Yeah, man. Bespoke radio for the masses. Yeah, I love it when I release that breath. Today's Tuesday, September 26th, 269 days into the new year. Just 96 days left. We are live from a bunker somewhere in downtown Burbank, California. And I would like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States, hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. This is Fade to Black for KJCR, the Game Changer Network, and KGRA, the planet. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking, everybody? How you doing? Excited. Got a special event tonight, at least for me. In that, tonight you don't get to hear me talk. How cool is that? Tonight we have very special guest Phil Proctor is here of Firesign Theater. He's got a new book out, Where's My Fortune Cookie? And the links for that are up in jimmychurchradio.com, but it will be up here in Twitter and all of social media here in a few minutes. So go and check that out. We're going to be talking about that tonight. The life and times of Phil. Tomorrow night, Maureen St. Germain is going to be here talking about waking up in 5D. She's one of our favorite guests, and her new book is out too as well. Thursday night is another Fader night. Open lines all night long with John Rappaport. He'll be here with his No More Fake Newsroom Live. The call-in numbers are 323-825-5045 or 323-275-9695. I'll see if a little bit later we can open up the phone lines. Phil, I already know what's going to go on here. We've got a lot to talk about. Okay, so, but if we can squeeze in some phone calls, I know that some of you would love to say hello to Phil and ask a few questions for yourself. So we'll see if we can squeeze that in. Do follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Very simple, at JChurchRadio. Use the hashtag F2B for the sandbox. As you know, every single night, we bust through about 2,500 or 3,000 tweets on this show. And if you want to be part of that conversation, everything is live to my right. And if you have any questions or comments during the show tonight for myself or Phil, hashtag F2BQ, Fade to Black Questions, F2BQ. Of course, all the chat rooms are live in front of me too as well. And if 140 characters is just not your style, then you can go and hang out in one of the chat rooms. We don't bite, so there you go. Everything is interactive. Okay, any questions or comments, you can also email Jimmy at jimmychurchradio.com. Don't forget a couple of things really quick. Subscribe to our podcast, which we have over 700 archive shows, and everything is there, Apple, Android, all platforms, and it's just $2 a month. We would do it for free like everything else that we do here, right? We would do it for free, but we can't because our company, they have to charge $2 a month. So there he goes, $2 a month. But it does help support the show. Okay, so that's there. And, of course, our membership area where you get the bunker cam and autographed hats and T-shirts and commercial-free downloadable archives. All that stuff is available to you in the membership area. And, of course, all of our sponsors that get this show done every single night, Life Change Tea, getthetea.com. River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. It is the best coffee in the world. So do check out Fade to Black. And New Pharma, Ancient Life Oil, Sacred Skulls. And next month, starting next week, we have a couple of new sponsors that we're going to introduce to you. Remember, our sponsors are family. And that's it. We just don't take the money here. I know it's against the business model, but we don't do that. All of our sponsors are family. So please support yourself, support the show, and go visit all of our sponsors. And with that, this is what I'm going to do tonight. In a couple of minutes, instead of going through my normal 20-minute rant, I'm just going to bring on Phil Proctor. So we're going to bring him early. He is live with us in Washington, D.C., so we're going to get to Phil in just 2 short minutes. But before I get to that, a couple of things. OTD, on this day in history, in 1996, Shannon Lucid returns to Earth following 6 months in orbit aboard the Russian space station Mir. She was the first American woman to live in a space station. But what was remarkable about her being the first woman in space, her first radio transmission back to Earth was, and I'm quoting here, "Wow, the Earth isn't flat. This baby is round, like a basketball. This is so cool. We're orbiting around the globe," end quote. There you go, flat earthers. I'm just saying that's, at least that's allegedly what she said. Fader fact. Check this out. In 2012, Google bought Motorola for $12.5 billion. One of the great business decisions in history. Yeah, it was. But they sold it 2 years later to Lenovo for $2.9 billion. And why am I laughing? They should have waited 2 years. And, Lenovo made the best business decision in history. All right, tonight, very special guest, Phil Proctor is here, Firesign Theater. He's got a new book out, Where's My Fortune Cookie? And I'm going to go straight to Phil right now. I'm giving up my platform tonight, and I'm a little giddy about it. Phil started at the age of 9 as a child actor in New York on live TV in Uncle Danny Reads the Funnies. Since then, his 68-year career has taken him from Broadway to radio, TV, feature films. Television appearances include, now check this out, Last Man Standing, Arrested Development, Jimmy Kimmel Live, and The Tonight Show with Jay Leno, All in the Family, Night Court, Dave's World, Golden Girls, Cagney and Lacy, and Simon & Simon. With the Firesign Theater four-man group listed as one of the 30 greatest acts of all time by Entertainment Weekly. Now, he's appeared on over half a century of LPs, CDs, DVDs, and onstage TV, on screen, in Zachariah, God's Clowns, Everything You Know Is Wrong, Hot Shorts, The Madhouse of Dr. Fear with Don Adams, Eat or Beat Eaten, and in Proctor and Bergman's TV or Not TV. Now, their overdubbed Republic cliffhanger cult hit, J-Men Forever. Now, Phil, with Peter Bergman and Phil Austin and David Osman, predicted reality TV. They predicted hackers, computer viruses, virtual reality, the fall of the Soviet Union, 9/11, and much, much more. Now, this Thursday, September 28th, he and Dave Osman will be appearing in a command performance of the Firesign Theater, or what's left of it, on the Coolidge stage of the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C., which, by the way, sold out in 3 days. Tonight, we're going to be discussing the Firesign Theater, his new book, Where's My Fortune Cookie? My Psychic Surrealistic Story, co-authored with Brad Schreiber. And I would like to welcome for the first time to Fade to Black, the one and only Phil Proctor. Phil.
I'm exhausted, Jimmy. How could anybody live a life like that? And still be here.
I'm already intimidated. But let me do this. Let me do this first, Phil. As a first-time guest, you get the first-time guest disclaimer, which is this. It's just you and I sitting on my couch having a conversation as friends. Where it starts, it starts. Where it ends. But we're going to end as friends. There you go.
That sounds fine as long as there's a beer between us.
I know that, and welcome, but I know that you have fielded every single ridiculous question that could be done in an interview, and I get that. But allow me the honor of lobbing a couple of softballs that you've probably answered a million times. But I have to.
All right, batter up.
I have to do it. And the first one is this: the four of you, did you honestly, going back to the '60s, have a clue on what you would be doing and influencing so many generations to come? Did you guys have any idea, or was it just a thing that you were doing?
You know, I really think that Peter Bergman, who started the whole thing by allowing us a chance to play together on a show called Radio Free Oz that he was hosting on KPFK listener-supported radio back in the mid-'60s, I think he had a vision of this. Because, first of all, when we discovered the first night that we met on the show that we were literally all fire signs. I'm a Leo, Phil and Peter are Sagittarians. No, David and Phil are Sagittarians, and Phil is an Aries. When we discovered that we were all, and I'm a Leo, when we discovered that, we went kind of something magical is going to happen here. And then when we discovered that we could improvise together like seasoned jazz musicians and riff off of one another, that was another clue. But Peter was the one who actually thought of us as being the potential Beatles of comedy, which is what the Library of Congress has now called us. And, you know, I was skeptical at the time because I had another career going. I had an acting career going in television and some films and stuff. And yet I was drawn into this vortex of comic improvisation, just like the other members were. We all knew that we were in a unique situation where we could be our own masters of the creation of a kind of a new approach to comedy that was based on the art of put-on, of send-up, of parody, because Bergman had established himself as the spokesman of the new generation on this pioneering late-night call-in talk show, okay, where he would, like you're doing, and the tradition has continued, he would talk to people who were abducted by flying saucers. He'd talk to gurus, he talked to medicine men, he talked to all kinds of people on the fringe of society who were actually pioneering new ways of looking at things and thinking of things. And he accepted the fact that we, the three jesters that joined him, we could be comic characters to his straight man, because he'd established himself as being this kind of all-knowing, calm host. And so we could come in and pretend to be Ernie the Wonder Healer, pulling chicken feet out of people's stomachs to cure them of cancer. Or we actually found our power when we did a thing called the Oz Film Festival with him, where we all played a variety of movie makers, and we showed our movies on the radio. And at one point, Phil Austin, who was playing a character named Jack Love, who was a pioneer of adult films,
right,
wanted to show his movie, Blondie Pays the Rent, on the radio. And he started to do it. Well, hello, Blondie. Why don't you come down? And Peter said, no, stop. No, we can't show a dirty movie on the radio. We'll lose our license. And the phone lines lit up. And people said, how dare you censor this artist from showing his work on the radio? And that's when we knew that something was happening. And something was that, right?
Yeah, and the other part. Okay, now this is where, for me, I remember, and I know you've heard this too many times, but
maybe
somebody handed me, one of the Firesign albums, and I took it home and I listened to it, and I went, "This is written for me. This is exactly what I need and what I want." Right. But you guys were writing for yourselves, and that's the magic, right? If everybody else enjoys it, then you've hit the home run.
Well, Jimmy, we were just like you have a loyal audience that knows what to expect and wants to hear your approach to fascinating and challenging and mysterious ideas. That was the kind of audience that we knew would support us We obviously did not foresee the extent of that audience. But just like you discovered Firesign Theater, we were preaching to an audience, or reaching an audience, I should say, that was starved for more arcane, complicated, or intellectual comedy. Okay?
Right.
And certainly nobody had done multi-form, multi-leveled comedy like we did. We pioneered the idea of story albums, if you will, that were really a kind of an outgrowth of radio, and how we loved radio, and how we shared that in common at this particular time in our life. And we wanted to carry the idea of radio and comic radio to a new level. And we were given all the tools to do that, and managed to do it for a very long time as the platform changed and evolved. So we were like kids in a sandbox. There's just no doubt about it. And the more people like yourself that turned on to the Firesign Theater, the more the company, Columbia Records, began to realize that there was actually an audience out there for this unique kind, this new brand of comedy. And that was one of the things that allowed us to continue to evolve.
Now, I can't move on without talking about the 60s, psychedelics, drugs, and everything.
Yep.
Because the audience, your audience, was probably largely high. You probably sold a lot of pot in this country.
Yeah, I think so. We one of the reasons Peter Bergman on his show, he used to, the kind of music he would play, like he'd put on a reggae record. And, a reggae cut would be like, 10, 15 minutes. So we could go out and get high. We could just walk out of the studio, go take a few puffs, breathe the fresh air, look at the stars, and then come back in as the record ended and jump back into what we were doing. All right. So yes, there was a kind of a collaboration with the drug culture at the time. We were definitely, in tune with the audience. But we were also making people high because of the crazy ideas that we were espousing and the surrealistic way that we approached things. So they were hearing things that they didn't hear anywhere else, And when we evolved it into our records, we actually were creating a form of deprogramming, because we parodied all of the commercials and radio, the sound of news and television shows and things in such a way that it sucked people in. Oh, yes, we're just listening to something that we hear every day. But then we take it, we do a subversive twist to it, which would make people then listen to real radio and real television from a different perspective. Do you follow what I'm saying?
I do, and
it's liberating.
Well, I think that the audience, they must have thought like me largely, in that we all wondered if you guys were getting high while writing and doing this, or because you listen to Rocky, whatever the character is, you're like, I relate to this.
You stupid fool!
Yes,
you bring me up.
Yes, and so. I think that was always the question that was out there in pop culture. Were you guys straight? And that would be a wonderful thing too, that you would be able to pull that off. Or were you one of us and you were doing this for us in that state of mind?
Jimmy, it's a combination. But basically, we could not have been stoned or heads and do the hard work that goes into writing and creating a format. Writing is hard work, no matter what you say. And when you get a group of people who are writing together, it becomes even more challenging. So if we did use any drugs or brandy, I remember we used to drink El Presidente brandy as we sat around our table, and occasionally we'd smoke a little pot. But other times it was just putting our heads together that made us high, and playing off of one another and enjoying the antic spirit and the comic ideas of each of the other three guys that we were working with. So that, listen, it's really fun to be in the presence of intelligent, funny people, right?
Right.
Or even intelligent, funny, sexy people. People are musicians and all that. It's a high. It makes you high, and by that it means it elevates your consciousness.
That's right.
And you become more than you just are normally. You see, and it gives you a perspective that is alien in a way. You look at things differently because you're seeing things through other antic minds. You see, this is why people get together. This is why people fall in love. This is what keeps the world going. If you find the proper soulmate and the proper partner, and we're always looking for that because it makes us greater than we are by ourselves. And that was the force. And it doesn't matter how. It's not like you have to do something, drink something, take something, smoke something to get there. But those things can help you relax enough that it opens you to the opportunity to appreciate and participate in that kind of interaction. Because basically, as much as we'd love to, as we'd love to believe in aliens, and I'm going to talk about some of that later,
yes,
because I have some very bizarre stories about that. At the same time, we're here. We're on this plane. This dimensional reality, and we have to make the best of it in the short span that we have to live in this planet and to make some kind of an impact on on the world around us, and to spread some kind of love and understanding in humanity with the people that we come across, to make some kind of lasting impression. So all of that is why you and I, because you were into music and everything, why we're artists.
Right.
Why we're artists, and why we want to share that with an audience that may not always have the opportunity to express themselves in the same way that we've been able to, we've been blessed to, but who can, through our work, liberate themselves and grow creatively, and maybe even be inspired to express themselves in more artistic and daring ways in their fulfillment of their life path.
With we're going to hit a break in about 5 minutes, so take your time with this answer. But I think it's going to be simple, which is clear up some urban legend for us.
Okay.
Which is me and my friends would sit around and argue about whether you guys were reading from a script or you guys were improvising. And this went on forever, and it was never answered. So were you guys writing this stuff out laboriously and reading from a script, or was it improv, or both?
Well, the thing is, Jimmy, are you talking about our radio shows or our records?
The records.
Okay. The records came out of our improvisational chops on our radio shows. And that was a combination of written material and improvisation based on the written material. Some of the material written by the four of us, some by two, some by three, some by one. And then the other guys riffing off of it. Now, we would laboriously work on an idea for a record, okay? Because somebody would come up with an idea, and it would inspire each one of us to write separately, and we'd bring that stuff to the table. I often thought of it as being like a witch's cauldron,
right,
where we'd throw in the eye of Newt, and the toe of Pete, and the brain of Phil, and mix it all together. And at the end of the day, we would have pages with a scene on it, or the development of characters. And sometimes we'd reach these points where we just could not agree, because there's four guys. That could be 3 against 1, 2 against 1, 4 different ideas. It was laborious, and we'd sometimes reach a point where we just could not agree where to go next with something. So we'd compromise. We'd say, we'll bring it into the studio, and I'll tell you about our studio techniques, because that was a gift that we were given also. We had the opportunity to actually write material, go in, lay it down, listen to it, come back, write some more. But when we went into the studio, those pages would sometimes be thrown away. And what you hear in the record would be an improvisation based on the material that we came in with, that once we began to bring it to life and those characters began to interact, they would go in a different direction. So it was
like musicians,
a combination.
right? Like musicians, like a band.
exactly like musicians. Really.
And the sound effects, because obviously you guys are painting, right? You're painting this picture. So who was in control? And by the way, was there somebody that had the last word? And what would happen there? Did you guys throw stuff at each other?
Well, if you're talking about then the production, in a way that's okay. I was known as Darth Foley, because I used to add the live elements to a scene if I felt they were necessary for the organic creation of that particular moment, to make it real for us.
Right.
But most of the effects, obviously, that we added were added in post-production, okay? And we used a lot of just old sound effects records and music. Sometimes we use live music. When we were doing our very first album, we were actually working with the producer Jimmy Guercio, who helped Chicago reach its fame. And he brought an orchestra into the studio there at Columbia Records and created live original music for our little short pieces on Waiting for the Electrician or Someone Like Him. Well, that was rare, but we did. We would integrate live music into our stuff. We did this one album called Fighting Clowns, which is our most musical album, and had artwork by the late great Phil Hartman on the cover. That was basically all musically based, and we had a live band on stage at the Roxy and recorded live our characters, the Eight Shoes, singing rock and roll parodies and all other kinds of intricate kind of Kurt Weill music. Then we'd go into the studio, and Skunk Baxter would come in, a legendary fuzz bass musician, and add tracks, and we could design it. Same with the sound effects. We would add tracks and build it. And when you said, is there anybody in charge? Phil Austin used to keep a record of all the tracks, so we knew where everything was. And when it came to actually doing the final mix, we could sit with the tracks in front of us, listening, and each one of us would be responsible for some aspect, moving one character, walking from stereo right to stereo left, bringing up the music at just the right point, bringing up a sound effect, ducking out a sound effect. So we worked in consortium. We worked together in concert to build these things. And again, it was a very democratic, hippie kind of organization, which was both a blessing and a curse. It was a curse when it came to our business, okay?
Right.
Because we wanted everything to be equal, and we basically that was why we would sometimes get hung up, because if we weren't in harmony, we felt that something was out of sync, and we didn't feel that it was right until we were in harmony with either a vision or what we were hearing in our heads and sharing, or the writing. You dig it?
I do.
Yeah, but in business, that ain't good, because we were really unmanageable. We couldn't. Nobody could tell the four of us exactly what we should do, since the four of us together were an organic unit that was more than just a bunch of guys together. So the thing that kind of broke the Beatles apart ultimately, that rivalry and that economic sharing, who gets more money for side A or side B, that was not an aspect of the way we worked. Everything was equally shared. And that was, as I say, it was a blessing creatively, but in terms of business and the progression of our career, not so great.
Let's take a break right here. Our guest tonight, Phil Proctor of Firesign Theater. He's got a new book out, Where's My Fortune Cookie? We're going to get to all of that tonight. So just sit down, kiddies, phone the neighbors, wake the kids. It's Phil Proctor. This is Fade to Black.
Come back to the church. Come back to the church.
We'll be right back right after this short message. Stay with us.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The
station that talks the net. KGRA Radio. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roasted to the dark side of fade to black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Yes, Rivermoon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2B blend for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy.
Hi folks, let's wind the clocks back 60 years. Food was different. Food provided health and nutrition, and using supplements was minimal. Unfortunately, now we have chemicals, GMOs, herbicides, and pesticides that can be quite lethal in the name of our food supply and, of course, the ever-loving dollar. Supplementing our diets can be very important to stay healthy. Cleansing from daily intruders to the body might be critical. Live strong and take charge. Log on to getthetea.com. Our herbal tea is a great way to cleanse from intruders. Our supplements is a great way to maintain and improve your health. When your health is not up to par, go to getthetea.com. No GMOs, no fillers, and organic, and very helpful in keeping you at the top of your game. Life is too short to feel, you know what I mean. Stay in the game, at the top of your game with getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Again, getthetea.com.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the planet.
Win big with KGRA this summer. Tickets and hotel accommodations to the biggest conferences, autographed books and DVDs, chances to win all-inclusive conference cruises, and private dinners with your favorite KGRA hosts. Click the contest tab at KGRAradio.com for your chance to win big this summer. Your contact for the best alternative talk radio on the planet. KGRAradio.com.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Network and KGRA The Planets. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. You can follow Phil at Phil Proctor on Twitter as well. He's our guest tonight, Firesign Theater, but he's got a new book out, and it is called Where's My Fortune Cookie? Now, it's the second half of the title of that book, which is what I find interesting. My Psychic Surrealistic Story, co-authored by Brad Schreiber. Now, this is where I'm going to go right now, Phil. I want to catch you a little bit off guard. Your career, it kind of goes without saying. You've probably forgotten more things that you've done than you remember, right? I know that has to be true.
You got that right.
It has to be true. But I'm gonna whip something out on you. Amazon Women on the Moon.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Yes. All right. Silly pate.
Silly pate.
And, tell me about that. How did that happen? How did you get the gig? And it is one of the funniest parts of the movie. And the movie is just as outrageous as it gets. But when you get to silly pate, and that idea that is there, it is even more out there than the film, which is as discombobulated and as hilarious as anything that has been put together. So tell me about it. How did you get the gig, and how did that happen?
Okay, now, and you're absolutely right about my basic problem is chronology. Okay, I have a terrible sense of direction. My wife can vouch for this. Not only in driving, I grew up in a small town in Goshen, Indiana. I used to ride a bike in the alleys. I knew where everything was, right? And then I moved to New York, and that was straight lines, and that's fine. But California, L.A., the first time I called to get somebody's a number, the operator said, "What city, please?" I said, "Well, Los Angeles." She said, "No, Sherman Oaks." And I went, oh, my God, this is not a homogenized city.
Right.
This is a bunch of, okay? So my mind is like that. Now, this particular movie was part of, I think, the time when I had starred or was heavily featured in a movie that Neil Israel did called Tunnel Vision, okay? I came off of my movie career, like everything else, is kind of fragmented, and it would be something that I could throw in between other things that were happening. So Firesign Theater was becoming like this river of activity, this steady flow of creativity. But every once in a while there'd be a hiccup in it. Somebody would go off to do a gig on the radio somewhere, or there'd be some kind of antagonism between the partners, or somebody get divorced or something. And then you go like, well, what am I going to do now?
Right.
And at that time, I'd find myself doing movie roles, okay? And I did this film with Henry Jaglom called A Safe Place, which I got to work with Gwen Wells, Tuesday Weld, Orson Welles, and Jack Nicholson, right? And that was really fun.
Right.
And then I did this film, Tunnel Vision. I don't know if it was after, I think, with Neil Israel, where I played the head of this really early cable channel type thing. And the reputation got around that Proctor was doing movies, okay? And because the combination of Firesign Theater and the kind of my own reputation as an actor would lead me to work with other creative people who were trying new ways of filmmaking. Presenting like that Amazon Women on the Moon, a bunch of funny skits, kind of Saturday Night Live, early, Saturday Night Live skits or SCTV skits and things like that, and putting into a movie form. And I would become a part of that movement, of that subculture that was really independent New Hollywood. And that was it. I was just part of it. I did another wonderful fun movie called Lobster Man from Mars. Did you ever see that?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Okay, and I got to work with Tony Curtis in that movie. Stanley Sheff was the director. I just worked with him, and my wife, Melinda Peterson, and I participated in a new screenplay that his wife has written. So he's still doing his stuff. But that was the same kind of thing. People knew of my reputation. They knew that I had, certain skills, and I had a good sense of humor, and I also understood surrealism. So whenever they were trying something new and wacky, they would naturally look for me and they'd find me. And that's really the secret, You probably know this because you were in the industry. So much of it, they call it networking now, but it's kind of like, who do you know? Who did you work with? Who did you have fun with? Who will recommend you to do, something similar to that in the future? And it led to a kind of a little repertory company of people who they knew they could have fun with and would cast in these kinds of pictures. So we learned from it, and we brought our own sensibilities to it as well, a lot of which was playing very straight in very surreal and crazy circumstances, right?
Yes, and the voiceover industry, and I've had Robert Clotworthy on, and
love him.
Yeah, he's the best, and different VO actors, and it is one of the most vicious, gnarliest parts of Hollywood, and Hollywood's gnarly. Hollywood is gnarly enough, but for a good VO, you don't have to have a good voice. Anybody that thinks that they have a good voice thinks that is the world that they're going to go and be successful in. It's not that kind of party. They want actors. They want actors first. And you did you have any vision that would be where your career was going to go? Because you are the perfect guy for VO.
it's another very insightful question that you're asking, and really, when I first got out of Yale University, where I studied Russian and got to travel to the Soviet Union with the Yale Russian Chorus, singing Russian songs on street corners throughout the major cities in 1959. And learned to speak Russian. When I came back, I got let's see. When I came back, when I graduated from Yale, I got a soap opera called Edge of Night, and I had an agent. And one of the things, knowing that I spoke Russian, my agent sent me out for one of these documentary shows like, This Is Now, That Was Then, or, the Second World War, an inside look and what have you. And I got to do a Russian accented voiceover in a studio in New York. And I go in, I spend 15 minutes talking, with Russian accent, reading lines about Second World War. And then I signed a contract, and it was $365. And I said to myself, I just spent 15 minutes in a studio.
Right.
But yeah, I had to wait and drink coffee for 15 minutes, and I made $365 plus residuals.
Right.
Okay, and this was like 1963.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Yeah.
I want to do more of that.
Right.
But it wasn't until the Firesign Theater many years later, well, not that many, maybe 10 years later, that I realized I was doing all these voices and things. I should exploit it. So I went and I got an agent, commercial agent, and I started doing radio spots, and I started doing television voiceovers and things like that. Now, at that time, as opposed to now, it was not as cutthroat an industry. It was a small group of talented individuals, all of whom we kind of all knew one another.
Right.
That's why I said Bob Clotworthy, what a nice guy.
Right.
I mean, we all knew one another. We still do. And we were not competing so much as working together. Okay? And I learned something very early about competition, and that is, especially when I was doing on-camera commercials. You go in for an on-camera commercial, and you're being asked to do some really stupid things. They want you to come dressed as a fisherman. Well, why? Because the producers can't envision you looking like a fisherman. They want you to come in a bathrobe. Well, why? Because they can't think that what you would look like in a bathrobe. So you had to do all these embarrassing things. And at a certain point, you begin to burn out. I said, at one point, I reached one of these points. I was getting commercials, but I said, I can't do this anymore. I can't. This is too humiliating. And so I looked at my date book, and I counted up how many auditions I had to go on before I got one. And I was like, 25. Okay, 25. And I was up to like 23. I said, okay, I'll go in for another commercial. Well, I got that one, and I got the next one. And here's why. When you go in and you're being cast for something, there's usually somebody who, especially in an on-camera thing, looks exactly right for the part, you know?
Right.
Remember, we used to see these guys. Terry McGovern was one of these wonderful guys. Great character face,
Yep.
and good actor. And so he would get all these commercials. He'd get a hamburger, he'd get a car, he'd get whatever. But then he wasn't available anymore, okay? So the next time that they did a hamburger or a car or whatever, Proctor, who came in second, he got the job. And I went, I see.
Right.
So now, in the voiceover industry, in those days, you would usually actually read copy in a studio, or you'd read for the producers in the studio, okay? So you were reading with other people, and the agent would send it in, and you get cast, because it wasn't that many people. Now, you can do your auditions from home on a computer, send them out into the ether, and you don't know who you're competing with. You're competing maybe now with hundreds of people, maybe more.
Right.
When in the old days, right, you'd compete with maybe 70 people, something like that. And you'd be working with them. And the producers who were working with you locally, they knew who you were. They knew you could do this. They knew that if you paired Proctor with Clotworthy or somebody else, it would be a good result, good chemistry. So it became, again, a little repertory company of talented actors. That's gone now. That doesn't exist.
No.
So Now, listen, in many ways, Jimmy, I have to tell you, I'm glad that I'm at the end of my career, or let's say that my career is transmogrified into something else, because it's a different world out there. I used to say that Hollywood is the only place where you could be stabbed in the front.
Right.
Right. But remember, a lot of my work was also in the ADR work. Now, ADR, for people out there who don't know it, is additional dialogue replacement. It's adding voices to all of the movies and the television shows, and even the cartoons that you see, background voices or little individual characters that that aren't leads in the thing. And the way that those groups were formed in the old days was improvisationary groups, improvisationary actors who the producers know they could hire to come in and add these voices with different dialects and different languages to their movies, right? And because I spoke 7 languages and could fake many others and could do any dialect and could change my voice and everything, which they knew through Firesign Theater as well, I became a member of some of these wonderful groups, Lee French and Mickey McGowan and many other really wonderful people. And so I had steady work coming in, because they'd say, okay, this movie takes place in Brooklyn, China, Yugoslavia, France, and Ireland. I can do that.
Yep.
Okay? Right?
Yep.
So I get the work. At a certain point, that changed too, because younger people began to take over the groups, and they naturally wanted to bring in their friends to do it, and other talented young people who could do it. That's fine. I had a great run with that. But it was also based on this idea of finding talented people and bringing them together into a kind of a little unified group where people could count on one another to support one another. I've never been a believer in the cutthroat competitiveness of our business. I believe that the basis of our pyramid is cooperation. It's, in a way, it's communal, where you like to say, let's work with so and so. Oh, I love working with that person. You recommend people for jobs, and that's the way it works. I don't think that's quite the same these days, because you look at everything. There's a lot more work being done. Okay, a lot more opportunity, but it's not paid as well. Okay, and it's also fragmented. There are hundreds of shows being done now. Lots of talented kids out there, lots of talented character actors, but it's not as though you're going to be recycled and used again and again and again. You're off on one show on the Underbelly channel, and another show is on the Who Are You channel, and another show is downloaded, and another show you have to subscribe to see.
Right. Well,
fragmented. It's not the sense of community is gone, and yet this is the paradox of our world. It's the paradox of your show right now. We're speaking to all kinds of wonderful people out there, but we're speaking in a very specific fade to black channel. Right. And these people subscribe to that channel, want to be a part of this experience. They believe in this experience. They are fed by this experience. They like what you're doing, okay? And therefore they show their support. That's how Firesign Theater happened. People showed their support. And there was a guy named John McClure at Columbia Records, a wonderful producer, who basically fought for us after our first album, because they were ready to drop us. They didn't know, who are these crazy guys and what is this crazy stuff they're doing. And McClure said, no, these guys are geniuses. They're going to do great work. And he said, I'm going to sign them to a spoken arts contract. What did that mean? That meant that we had unlimited free studio time.
Wow.
Okay? We had for a slightly reduced royalty.
Right. Unheard of.
Yeah, unheard of. It was unheard of. And it allowed us to do, as I said earlier, to have the luxury to write an album, or take the part of the album, go in and lay it down, let it inform us, come back, write some more, go in. You didn't have to have a complete script. You didn't have to have a complete breakdown. You didn't have to budget the whole thing for 2 weeks or 5 days or whatever it was. We had the luxury to spend really as much time as we needed to do that album justice. But at the same time, we were efficient, and we were turning out stuff. We were performing live. We would take our material, the beginning of our material, like "Don't Crush That Dwarf, Hand Me the Pliers," which we discovered was really about channel surfing, and we discovered that by going on the stage at what is now the Improv, what was then the Ash Grove, and doing a little show based on the ideas of the album. Okay? And then we could tell what resonated with the audience, and we could tell what it was that worked that we could translate into a movie for the mind, which is the way we often thought of our albums. And then we could go into the studio with a form in our mind and lay it down piece by piece until we were satisfied. So there was not a lot of re-editing with our work. You know, we didn't take one scene and throw it there and move scene, throw it there. We worked pretty linearly.
Close enough. Do you understand?
You get the idea.
Phil, let me jump in. Do you, looking back, and now that you understand the industry, do you realize how lucky you guys were to be handed that kind of gift, to be able to grow and to not be pressured, and not to have the record company going, dudes, we need this now. You get one day in the studio, and if it flops, you guys are dropped, and you're you know, like they did with all of their talent. But that's not the way, apparently, that you guys got to play.
No, it's true. And yes, as anybody in show business will tell you, luck plays an important role in everything. It's interesting because in my book, Where's My Fortune Cookie, which is you rightly called out as being psychic, surrealistic story,
right?
It has a lot of elements of serendipity, a lot of elements of coincidence, a lot of elements of luck, but it has more elements in my life of really kind of bizarre and uncanny things that happened, psychic things that happened, that guided me in the path of my ultimate choices to create this kind of very unique and bizarre career that I ended up having. And a lot of that, people would say it's luck, but one of the reasons I wrote the book was I want to show people that it has more to do with listening to your higher mind, following your better instincts, and not being afraid to accept really inexplicable hints as to the direction of your life or the choices that you make as you find your way through this bizarre, interesting dimension that you've been given the opportunity to experience and to explore. If we get into that later on, I'll tell you some bizarre stories that I think will make you recognize what I'm getting at.
And we'll do that right after the break. But before we get there, have you found your bliss?
Yeah, I think so. I think that any artist is challenged constantly because there's always you always feel okay. I was watching on the flight here. I watched a Beatle documentary by I can't remember who did it, but a fairly recent Beatles documentary. And one of the things that John Lennon said when he was asked about when they took breaks from their work, you know, and whether that affected his work. And he said, well, you know, I got to keep working. I can't help it. It just, you know, happens, and you can't stop it. And see, that's the way I feel about it. That's why when you ask an artist if he's happy, they'll generally say, yeah, pretty much so. But we're always challenged to do more. I know that's the way it is with me. Even though I know that I'm reaching the end of my professional life in a way, because I have less opportunities, I still feel the urge and the need to express myself, and that's what makes me happy. That's what brings me the bliss. It's not like a nirvana. It's not like a Buddhistic rest. It's not like a meditation. It's a meditation with a goal, which the guru that I studied with, Jacques Honduras, many years ago, who Peter Fonda led me to, of all people.
Wow.
That was the major message of the lessons that I learned in studying higher consciousness and meditating. You meditate towards a goal. Otherwise, you become kind of a karmic bum. You know, you find the bliss, but you don't find the blissfulness.
I need to freeze frame that for a second. Peter Fonda's guru. Now that right there, man, that's a special moment. Now let me ask you this though. Feature films, radio, television, the success, Library of Congress, right? All of this stuff is going on. But what would be left? Dancing with the Stars? I mean, what is it?
No, I'm not a very good dancer. I tried. I took, when you get out of school and you're an actor or something, you always want to try everything you can because, oh man, I'm going to be in a musical. I want to dance.
Right.
I tried jazz dancing. No, I can't. Couldn't do that. I can sing, I can move, I can dance a little bit, but that I said, no, okay, that's not going to be part of my skill set, right? And I have to accept that. But I can do other things other people can't do, and I'll build on those strengths. You see, instead of trying to challenge myself to in a sense waste time trying to fulfill an aspect of my own destiny that wasn't necessarily part of the gifts that God gave me naturally. You follow?
Yeah, I do. And we're going to hit a break here in 60 seconds. So give me the list, your influences, and listening to you, I have no idea who that could be, but just give me the 30-second short list.
Okay. Bob and Ray, Ernie Kovacs,
mm-hmm.
Mad Magazine.
Oh, yeah.
Classical music, Broadway music, jazz music in general. I play the violin. Not well anymore, but I played in an orchestra, and I sing. I love to sing. Languages, fascinated with languages. I had a gift for languages. And let's see. I would say then dreaming. I love dreaming. I used to be able to control my dreams when I was a kid, and I always studied like self-hypnosis and ways of finding clues and secrets to using my personality to its fullest extent, and then to a certain extent, inner spiritual belief in the inner spiritual reality and the universality of all mankind. Those are kind of where I come from.
Favorite guitar player?
Favorite guitar, Jimi Hendrix.
I knew that. See, that's the second softball of the night that you get, Phil. Let's take a break right here. Our guest tonight, Phil Proctor. When we come back, now we're going to go where we need to go.
Let's go.
Let's go into the world of the supernatural. Our guest tonight, Phil Proctor. Firesign Theater, his new book, Where's My Fortune Cookie? We'll be right back.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station, Salt Lake City, Utah, Van Buren, Arkansas.
Hello, and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA Digital Broadcast Station.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to jimmychurchradio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And this is Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
Yes.
We are of the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And I'm Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
And you're listening to Jimmy Church.
The Revolution.
Ancient Life Oil. Life-changing, the real oil. CBD is truly ancient life oil from the source. This oil has no psychoactive effect and is also legal in all 50 states. When you're healthy, you're happy. The truth about this wonderful plant is that it wants to give back to mankind life, longevity, and happiness. Ancient Life Oil are golden grade, all organic, non-GMO, and infused with high-quality liquid coconut oil. It's simple. Just go to ancientlifeoil.com today. That's ancientlifeoil.com. The best, purest, organic, and non-GMO CBD in the world. Go back, Lee Tappy. The statements made regarding these products have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Please consult your healthcare professional about potential interactions or other possible complications before using any product. What's up, Fadernauts? Studio Dome loves Fade to Black and the F2B audience so much that they have put together the ultimate stereo Bluetooth system. They've done it just for you. Man, check this out. The Studio Dome SBB2 stereo system is here. It's featuring 2 Studio Boombox 2 SBB2 wireless Bluetooth speakers, packed in its own custom hardshell case. This Studio Dome system features the very latest in stereo Bluetooth technology. The 2 full-range boomboxes are in true wireless stereo. You've got to hear this. It's amazing. It's just $129 and use the promo code JCRTWS and you'll also get free shipping. It's simple. Just go to jimmychurchradio.com, click on the Studio Dome banner. Go back, Lee Tappy.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black, across the globe on the Game Changer Radio Network and the one and only KGRA Radio, The Planet.
All right, welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter, at JChurchRadio. You can follow Phil, at Phil Proctor, on Twitter. He's our guest tonight, Firesign Theater, of course, but he's got a new book out, Where's My Fortune Cookie? And we're going to talk about some of the things that are in this book. I want people to purchase the book, and the links are over at jimmychurchradio.com. You can click and go and check it out. But, Phil, this is the truth. I have always been fascinated, and it's my mom's fault, but I've always been fascinated with the subjects of not only UFOs, but Edgar Cayce and ancient Egypt and ancient aliens and Eric Von Daniken and all of that. So I grew up with that. But with Firesign Theater, I would listen to those albums, and I knew something was going on. I just knew it, right? So now I get the book, and I'm reading the book, and my life now is making a lot of sense. I'm being honest here. So with the subject of aliens and ET, I'm going to hand this off to you, but I'm going to make this comment first, which is this. There has been a lot of talk lately from government agencies and NASA about alien contact and fast radio bursts and exoplanets and is there life out there? We're searching, we're looking, and every week there seems to be some kind of alien press conference, right? Which is pretty unusual. We've never had this in the past. So when you hear this kind of stuff and the possibility of alien contact, what is your answer to that?
Well, frankly, from my experiences, and I'll talk a little bit about some of them, I think it's intradimensional, okay? I think it goes beyond the laws of physics. And I think that a lot of the sightings, the physical sightings, are robotic vessels because the distances that we talk about astronomically are astronomical between, galaxies and planets and things. But the the ability of, and which we've learned even with drones being a metaphor for reaching out from another planet and visiting another planet without having to have really any kind of I hesitate to use the word human, any kind of organic connection to it. Okay, can be, especially from an advanced civilization, can have a tremendous effect, which it does have, even if it just enlightens people to the fact that they're not alone. Okay?
Right. Right.
So I'll get into some of that. I do want to mention, by the way, if people are interested in following me, they can go to planetproctor.com, which is my little blog. Okay, planetproctor.com. And also, for those people who might only know me through Firesign Theater, I want to mention to your other listeners, I was the voice of Howard on the Rugrats for 14 years. I am the drunken French monkey in the Dr. Dolittle movies, and I am the villain Dr. Vidic in the Assassin's Creed games, among other things. Just so that you get an idea, which I know you understand, but just so that you get an idea of how a voiceover career can reach so many interesting levels. Now, here's what's going on. The book is called Where's My Fortune Cookie? Because Peter Bergman and I, and there's an illustration of this on the cover of the book, it's a shot of Peter Bergman and me cowering under a table in a Chinese restaurant. That's because the book starts off with the story of how Peter and I were involved in the Golden Dragon Massacre, which happened 40 years ago in 1977 in September, in which 5 people were killed and 11 wounded, including our friend who brought us into the restaurant, who is still carrying a machine gun slug behind his knee. Now, when this event occurred, and I won't go into it, it's in the book, and it's a pretty honest rendition of what it felt like to be in the middle of a gangland shooting between 2 Chinese gangs with people being killed and wounded around me. But the point of the story, the ultimate point of the story, is that the whole thing was predicted to me. It was predicted to me 2 months before by a friend of mine named Sharon, who said I would be involved. After a show with Peter Bergman, we would be involved in a gangland shooting. People would be killed and wounded around us, but we would come out okay.
Now, let's pump the brakes here. That's pretty dramatic, and if you get that laid onto you from a psychic, a friend, I had a dream, whatever, that's usually dismissed because it's a little bit too fantastical. Right? It's getting out there a bit. So did you think about it, or did you just dismiss it?
No. There are 2 aspects to that. Number one, as I mentioned to you before, I had been studying higher consciousness really since I was a kid.
Right.
Always fascinated me. So I was always open to the possibility of the invisible world and the effect of my effect on the invisible world and the invisible world's effect on me. What's flowing around? What am I listening to in my back brain? What's that little sizzle back there?
Right,
what's that little message? Okay, what's my instinct when I meet these people or when I walk into this situation? Does the hair stand up on the back of my neck? And during the time that Peter Bergman and I were touring with Proctor and Bergman, there were hijacking going on. The Symbionese Liberation Army was active. There were, domestic terrorism, right?
Yes.
And so I was aware. My hackles were up, and I used to fantasize about being in a dangerous situation and how would I respond. So when this shooting happened...
This was in San Francisco, right?
Yeah, San Francisco, that's right. The Golden Dragon restaurant. And the way it all came about is in the book is, again, kind of like, how did this happen? Well, it happened because I learned that morning that my wife, Barbara Semmingson, my second wife, was pregnant. And so instead of her coming up to San Francisco with me, which would have changed the whole dynamic of that evening,
right,
she decided to stay home. And because of that, I'm then lying under a table behind the steel column of the table while people are being killed right in front of me with these 3 guys with 2 rifles, a BAR machine gun, and a pistol. And I'm thinking, I have a choice I have no choice, and I'm between life and death. Life is responsibility, raising a child,
right,
which I just learned about that morning.
Right.
Death is no responsibility.
Right.
Nothingness.
Right.
Being in nothingness. There it was. And then the next thing I thought was, when the drilling stops, you can go home if you're in the dentist's office. You have to put up with it till it stops. And when the shooting stopped, I was okay. So having had that experience, I knew afterwards that it had been predicted. It wasn't like I'm lying under there and going, oh my God, Sharon predicted this. No, because I was in the moment. Right. But I then thought back, well, the reason I even mentioned Sharon is that she was intimately involved with contact with aliens. And I'm going to get into this because it's all pretty weird. But I want to put it out there because maybe other people can relate to the experiences. But I first want to tell you why the book is called Where's My Fortune Cookie? After all of this went down, many, 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 many years later, Peter Bergman passed away 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. And he had a memorial service. We had a memorial service for him in Venice, California. And there was a friend of ours named Gretchen Steiner, who had brought fortune cookies to the memorial service with Peter's name in it, his date of birth and death, and then various names of our albums. I think Roboza's on this bust, of course, that dwarf, etc. Firesign quotes to it. And so I asked her, I said, well, that's really sweet of you to do that because of the Golden Dragon Massacre. And she said, what? I said, Peter and I survived a Chinese gangland shooting. She said, you did? What? I said, wait a minute. You don't know about that? She said, no, I don't. I said, well, then why did you get these fortune cookies?
Right.
And she said, Peter Bergman came to me in a dream.
No.
And he said to me, I never got my fortune cookie.
No.
That's what she said to me.
That is nuts. That is nuts. Okay, well,
you wanted to go there. I'm going to take you there.
I love it, but I want to know what at that moment, Phil, what went through your head at that moment?
The same thing that's going through my body right now, which is emotion.
Right.
Tears.
Right.
It's like the recognition of something beyond.
Right.
It's a validation in a way of the world beyond. Right, and at the same time, it's a mystery because where did this come from? Did she subliminally remember? Did she hear one of our comic routines? Because after that event happened, the shooting, Peter and I had to fly to Boulder, Colorado, and perform. And of course, we integrated this into our act. We said we just survived, a shooting, 5 killed, and then and Peter said, and I said, luckily I ordered the duck, and then Peter said, and I ordered the scared prones. You see, and he may have then well said, and I never got my fortune cookie. Maybe she heard it and forgot it. I don't know, but whatever I would prefer to think it was because Peter visits me in my dreams.
Right.
So does my late partner Phil Austin, who passed away also of leukemia not too long ago. Yes, it's a part of my life, and it's a part of the continuity of my relationship with these powerful personalities. Now, Sharon, here's how that went down. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, I'm touring with Proctor and Bergman, and we had, because of our fascination with ufology and our belief and fascination that there is some kind of contact that's going on, and our fervent desire that someday these secrets will be revealed to us as a world, okay, as a continuity of nations and as human beings, so that we realize that we are not alone in the universe. And what will that bring to us? Because of this, we created 2 comic alien characters, Zippo and Gorko from the planet Beepo or something.
Right,
Zippo and Beepo from the planet Gorko.
Right.
And we were, I can't even remember all the material we did, but it was alien perspectives on our world. And Tony Hiss, Alger Hiss's son, was writing for The New Yorker at the time, and he caught our act, and he said, I want to interview you guys for the Talk of the Town, which is the New Yorker magazine kind of cultural comedy thing that they do. So he did. He interviewed us. And he was going to interview us. So we were in Chicago getting ready to go to New York, and I picked up a newspaper, and I saw this article about this guy named Uri Geller. And I was talking about how he was a psychic and he could bend spoons with his mind and this and that and everything. And I got very excited. and I knocked on the adjoining door to Peter's room, and I said, Peter, we got to meet this guy. We got to meet this guy, because it also talked about he'd been communicating with aliens in the desert in Israel. So I got to meet him. Oh, okay, Phil, fine, good. So we go to New York. We do the interview. That night we're performing at the bottom line, or the bitter end, or the bitter line, and the bottom end. And I go to the box office. Oh no, there's a message for me. I get to the theater, to the cabaret club, and he said, "There's a message for you," and it's from this Sharon, and I don't know a Sharon. So, and it had an area code that was like Woodstock area. So, and it said, Uri Geller wants to meet you.
Okay.
Are you following this?
I'm tripping is what I'm doing, but
Uri
yes.
Geller wants to meet you.
Right.
I go, oh my God, what is this?
What are the odds of this?
Yes. So I integrated it into the act. I said, "Oh, Uri Geller, born with a bent spoon in his mouth. This guy is this and that." Now it turns out, Uri Geller is a magician who acquired his fame and his fortune basically by deceiving people. But at the same time, I then discovered when I called this girl up, it was Sharon. She changed her name, and she had a married name, which I didn't recognize. And she was a girl that I got to know when I was living with Jeremy Clyde of Chad and Jeremy in an estate in Encino. Okay, and she was a very cute girl and very smart and sweet. So I said, "What are you doing?" "Well, I'm working with Uri Geller and Dr. Andrea Puharich."
Oh, really? Okay,
yeah,
this
you know
is this.
that
Oh, yeah,
I'm sure
of
some
course.
of your listeners know who Puharich is.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Oh, yes.
Okay, and up in Ossining, New York, and she said, "You got to come up and visit." So since I'm on the road and I have some time of my own, I go up and I visit her, and she proceeds to tell me why Uri Geller wants to meet me. Okay, why? Now listen to this. I'm in this big house. She said they came back from a television interview, Puharich and Geller, and they come into the house, and they turn on the light in the hallway. Standing in the middle of the hallway is a record, a 78, a 33 and a third record, the good old vinyl kind.
Right.
And it's standing unsupported. This is what she says to me. Standing unsupported in the hallway. Now, she said all of their records were upstairs in this entertainment center. And she said it looked like it had dematerialized and floated down and was sitting there. They go over to the record. It's the Firesign Theater record. It's called Lawyer's Hospital. And it has a picture of us depicted on a spaceship. I'm the captain of the spaceship. And Bergman is an alien. I think Austin's an alien. Anyway, we're all in a spaceship. And they picked up the album, and then they tried to make it stand up on end, and they couldn't. And she says, "It's the Firesign Theater. It's my friend Phil Proctor." And Geller says, "I want to meet this guy. I got to meet this guy." Now I'm alone with her. I didn't meet Geller. Later I met Puharich. It's another weird story. But it's just me and Sharon. And this is the night that she ultimately told me I was going to be involved in this gangland shooting. But before that, she told me of the story of the connection with the aliens. And she said that basically Puharich and Geller had been meeting with some aliens in the desert in Israel. And she said that she, Sharon, was a conduit for reverse engineering from the aliens, and that she was being flown all over the country to speak to groups of scientists and other military people.
What year was this?
Oh, let's see. This is 70... When did this happen? 78. Okay, well, the shooting was 77, so it was like 77.
77,
early in
okay.
77.
Right,
okay?
right.
All right. Now, during the course of the evening, I shared with her some other strange things that had been happening to me. One morning when I was living up on Sunset Plaza Drive with my first wife, Sheila, Peter and I were writing together. We were writing our act. And so he joined me up in this big house I was living in, which was a house built by Rudolph Valentino for his aunt. Beautiful house. And we're in our kitchen, and it's one of these June gloom mornings. It's all dark, and I just had some coffee. We're sitting at this little table in our kitchen, and there was a big old Magic Chef stove that we had at this place, and it's kind of a stove that has a big hood on it with lighting built in.
Right.
And so I look over at Peter, and it's dark in here, and I said to myself, I better turn the light on, and the light in the Magic Chef, boop, 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 came on. Fluorescent light. Turned on.
Nice.
I said, Peter, did you see that?
Nice.
He said, yeah. I said, I just thought that, and it just happened. Oh, okay. So we wrote. Well, that was the beginning of a long run of lights going on and off around me. In fact, Valerie Perrine lived across the street with Bob Hope's mistress. Please, don't ask.
Right.
And she came over one day with her dog, and I put out 2 steaks to thaw, and I told her the story with my wife of this light thing, and I pointed over to the Magic Chef, and the light was on in the Magic Chef. I said, that's where it happened, and the light went out.
Yeah. Now, were you thinking that maybe? Well, but I'm being serious.
Yeah,
were you?
Me too.
Were you thinking that maybe now you could do this on command?
Well, yes, and there were times, and there are witnesses to this. There were times when I almost did, where I would tell this story, because this went on for a very long time,
right?
To friends. And I was at somebody's big old house in Beverly Hills telling this story, good friends, and the woman went upstairs for something, and then came downstairs and said, the light just flickered on in my bedroom. And I went, oh, okay. Now, but here's the topper for me. We ran into Steven Spielberg, Peter and I, who is a Firesign fan, and we go back a long ways together. But he used to live on a place called The Farm, where Peter lived, and it's a long story. But anyway, we ran into him while he was scouting locations for Close Encounters. And we were talking about our alien characters. This was the same period. We're playing these alien characters. Oh, well, I'm doing a movie about aliens. And blah, 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 blah. So, okay, fine. And by the way, the movie E.T., the director of photography, Alan Davio, did our movie, Everything You Know Is Wrong. He filmed our movie, Everything You Know Is Wrong, which is partly about your show, right? And about alien encounters, right?
Right.
Okay.
Well,
so anyway,
and I'm
wait.
I have to stop you.
Oh, okay.
I was not even 60 seconds ago. Steven Spielberg popped into my head.
Oh yeah,
yeah. And I was going to go there about Close Encounters, about his knowledge and Hollywood. I swear on all that I love. And then
this is what I love.
And you whip that out.
This is what's going on.
Okay, continue, Phil. Now you can,
all right. So lights going on and off. All right. So I go to see Close Encounters at a Writers Guild screening in Beverly Hills, and I pull up my car under a street lamp off the street parking, and the light goes off. No, it goes on. The light goes on. No other lights on the street, but this one goes on. Right where I parked. I go in to the movie, or to see the movie, and there's kind of a hubbub going on in the lobby. And I said, well, what happened? He said, oh, well, we were all watching the movie, and then there was a blackout. That stopped. There was a blackout in Beverly Hills. And I said, oh. Well, that's interesting. And then I watched the movie, and of course, everything was fine. This went on forever. Now, Sharon told me, when I told her these stories, she said, that's the aliens telling you that you're on the right track in investigating this, in telling their story, in telling people, yes, it's really out there, that there is life out there, it is really happening. Now, I then met poor Harwich, Peter and I had lunch with Andrea Puharich in New York, and we were staying at the Barbizon, which is a great old hotel. Used to be like a ladies' hotel in the old days. And he at lunch, he tells us this story of how he's got a watch on, which is in Hebrew numbers and Roman numbers, okay? And he says it tells the time in Israel and it tells the time in America, okay, where he is. And he said that the aliens stop the Hebrew letters, stop the pointer, the dial, pointing at various Hebrew letters. He writes them down, and it gives him messages.
I've heard this.
Fine.
Yes.
You've heard this before?
Yeah, oh, yes,
okay.
yes.
Okay. We go, fine. Good. Hey, that's great. So we go back to the hotel. I can't get into my room. What? No, the key doesn't work. What? So we call the detective, the house detective, and he comes up, and he says, is there somebody else in there? I said, no, it's my room. He said, well, somebody has thrown the deadbolt, and you can only do that from the inside.
Oh, no.
I said, what are you talking about? He says, don't worry, I've got a way to open it. And he opens it. He opens the door, and there's one light in the room. It's the light above, in the ceiling. It's on.
And see, this is, and when did this follow you from a child?
No,
I mean,
not that I know of. I certainly wasn't aware of lights going on and off when I was a kid, or went to school, or in Russia, or anything like that. This was something that happened around the time that we were beginning to write the material about the aliens. Okay.
Right. And now, okay, we're going to hit a break right here. I want to go back to the Steven Spielberg thought before it gets away from me.
Okay.
Do you think that he is privy to information? He's got way too much stuff about aliens, and the fascination is obviously there. But do you think he's got some direct information?
I think that yes, I do. That's the short answer, and I think that a lot of it comes out of research. And a lot of it comes out of talking to people like Sharon and other people who have had direct and personal experience. And then how do you communicate that to the world, right?
Right.
And we communicated it to the best of our ability on our limited scale. And Firesign did too, in Everything You Know Is Wrong. By the way, now available, the movie, now available in a 2-DVD set. Just go to firesigntheater.com, which has a whole bunch of Firesign films, which I'm sure a lot of people are always aware of, plus the entire Everything You Know Is Wrong movie, and some home movies, some of which we're going to be showing at our performance at the Library of Congress on the making of Don't Crush That Dwarf, Hand Me the Pliers, which is the album that was inducted into the Library of Congress that got us to this point, because I think they're going to acquire our archives.
Wait, I've got to take a break right here, so let's do that. But the comment when I hear something like that, do you think you have made that influence that people are speaking about? Do you feel it in your bones? And
yes, I do. And this is one of the things Sharon said. It is going to be through all of these little revelations that people finally will be ready to accept the big revelation that's coming.
We'll talk about that when we come back. Our guest tonight, Phil Proctor. Stay with us.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRARadio.com.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Hello, Fadernauts. This is Jimmy Church, and I'm introducing New Pharma, a company whose products are based on science. Human function based on the endocannabinoid system, or ECS. New Pharma firmly believes in this science, and their research indicates that support of the ECS provides the beneficial effects for a healthy lifestyle. New Pharma's science includes relief capsules for pain relief, sleep capsules, which are natural support for occasional sleeplessness. Foundation is support for your ECS, and Fit capsules support your active lifestyle. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2B for a 33% discount on all of their products. Or visit newpharma.com for all of the knowledge on the science. That's GNUpharma.com. Go Beckley Tappy.
Hi, I'm Matt Ray for U.S. Gold Bureau. I cover the market daily. No matter how strong it gets or what long-term predictions say, you can count on one thing as certain. There will be another crash. It will affect your assets. And when it happens, wouldn't you rather be 2 weeks or even 2 months ahead of the curve? Well, Wall Street insiders have been quietly converting their assets into gold for the last few years. Now it's your turn. Buying gold and silver is easier than buying stocks. With the U.S. Gold Bureau's Investor Guide, it's free, and you learn how to buy precious metals in or out of an IRA or 401k retirement plan. Your investment shipped directly to your home and is 100% insured and guaranteed. You control your investments and shelter them against the stock market, politics, and unknown threats. Act while your dollar is still worth something. Call U.S. Gold Bureau, 800-885-GOLD. U.S. Gold Bureau, 800-885-GOLD, 800-885-GOLD. Call today.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA. KGRAradio.com.
Hi, folks. CBD is the home run hitter for health right now. Why, you ask? Because of what it does for the body. Unfortunately, I can't tell you all about the benefit. You know, there's reasons. Do your due diligence and log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com. Ancient Life Oil uses organic ingredients and is blended in coconut oil for some of the best benefits. Legal in 50 states and non-psychoactive. Log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. You can follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. You can follow Phil at Firesign Phil, but it's Phil Proctor. You can find him on Twitter. The links I just posted. And this is what I'm imagining right now, Phil. You're over at this Screen Actors Guild retirement home in Burbank.
Yes.
And you're sitting around the table with your buddies, right? You're playing dominoes, and one guy says, I did a bunch of Scorsese. I was in The Godfather. The next guy's, I did Apocalypse Now. And my stuff is in the Library of Congress. The conversation stops at that point, right? You've got that going for you.
It's true. As much as I regret at times that I wasn't able to pursue a more active film career, because making movies is really fun and a miraculous form of entertainment. I have to admit, I still enjoy doing theater. By the way, I work with the Antius Company, which is an award-winning classical company in Los Angeles, California, with my darling wife Melinda Peterson as often as I can as well, and that gives me great satisfaction. But really, being recognized for having a cultural effect was a high point of our career when we discovered that they were inducting Don't Crush That Dwarf, Hand Me the Pliers into the Library of Congress about, how many years ago was it, honey? 7 years ago? 6 years, 7 years ago. And they flew us down here to Washington, AC/DC for a ceremony and a lovely luncheon at the library and everything, a tour and all that. It was thrilling. And at the same time, mind you, Jimi Hendrix catalog was being inducted into the Hall of Fame. And Martha and the Vandellas.
Right.
Was Martha there? Dancing in the Street was also inducted at that time. So, I mean, that's pretty cool. And, the other thing that tickles me, if you have a Siri on your iPhone, if you have an iPhone,
right.
I'm going to do something here if I can.
I'm going to do it with you. I'm going to do it with you. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, you may know this, but here I go. Okay, here we go. Wait a minute. Turn you on. Come on, Siri. Siri. This is Worker speaking. Hello.
Hello, Dr. Clem. What function can I perform for you? LOL.
That's what Siri says.
That's insane.
Well, you know it's insane, and maybe some of the other people listening, but other people may not. I'm Clem.
You have arrived. I mean, that's that.
Now, why? Now, why did this happen? Why does Siri make a Firesign Theater reference to an album called I Think We're All Bozos on This Bus, which was an album in 1971, I think it was, where we predicted the computer revolution, where Clem, my character, was a hacker, basically, who had been fired from this thing called the Future Fair, and I go back to get my revenge by breaking into the mainframe computer and planting a virus, which is a question that can't answer in yes or no. Why does the porridge bird lay his egg in the air? Okay, and it brings the entire Future Fair down. It crashes the computer, the government computer, and destroys the illusion that the computer has created in this kind of Disneyland world that everything is going to be great in the future. And that the future is now.
Where does that come from, though? Are you channeling?
I did a bunch of Pixar movies, okay, and Monsters Incorporated, A Bug's Life. Dave Osman also played a major role in A Bug's Life, and my wife and I went up to San Francisco for the cast and crew screening, and I met Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs had just bought into Pixar. He was invested in Pixar,
right?
And he said to me, "I'm a big fan." And I said, well, you're much taller than I am, but I had no idea. And it turns out he was a Firehead. He was a Firesign Theater fan. And so we actually influenced him with this album and inspired him to continue to develop the home computer, apparently. And he put this into his iPhone as an homage to the Firesign Theater.
Well,
isn't that cool?
But that's fantastic. I'm more interested in the vision of the future and where that is coming from. That's a pretty trippy thing because it's out there, it's part of the universe, but it went through you, and certainly it's almost prophetic. It's almost predicting the future.
Well, as you said in that little intro that you read, which is some of the publicity material that we sent forward, the Firesign Theater has done a lot of very scary predictive stuff. And remember, we started making records in the late '60s, and we've had a 50-year career. But the end of creating a lot of in-studio records happened, maybe 20 years ago or something like that. And we predicted a lot of scary things. Waiting for the Electrician or Someone Like Him. Our first album was so named because Peter Bergman was in Amsterdam getting high on the roof back in the mid-'60s. Excuse me. And there was suddenly a blackout in Amsterdam. All the lights went out. And he was going like, wow. They were like, wow, man. And Bergman said, well, I guess we're waiting for the Electrician. Or someone like one of his Dutch friends said, I guess we're waiting for the Electrician, and Bergman said, or someone like him, and that became the album title. Now, what's interesting about that? On the second side of the album, we did a whole piece about basically the downfall of the Soviet Union's control of the Eastern Bloc. Okay, we did this crazy kind of Kafkaesque piece that ends with "Beat the Reaper," and has a lot to do with revolution and overthrowing this dictatorial regime, Soviet-style dictatorial regime. Well, who was the man in Poland who started Solidarność? Lech Walesa.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, Lech Walesa.
What was his job? You know what his job was?
He was a dock worker or something, right?
Yeah.
Right.
He was a ship's electrician.
Right.
Come on.
Yes, that's right.
I mean, okay, maybe it's a coincidence, but it's a good one. Now, we did this album, The Bride of Firesign, and in The Bride of Firesign, one of the major plot point was there was a mad scientist who had just like the Frankenstein movie, original Frankenstein movie, where they had the tower where the electricity would bring life to the monster, right?
Yep.
The same thing that was parodied so brilliantly in Young Frankenstein.
Yep.
Well, in our little take on this, this mad scientist was up at the top of a huge tower in a city which we call Fun Town, and that tower at the end of this album was struck by lightning and burned to the ground. Now, when was that album released? 9/11.
Now, see, at what point do you step back and go, okay, this is beyond coincidence? Right. This is beyond coincidence, and I've got a pretty good track record here. I mean, what point do you step back and realize that there's something else going on? You brought up interdimensionality. And the possibility of parallel worlds or time shifts or precognition. But this all seems to be interwoven into your life and career. Something's going on here.
That's what so much of the book is about. I'll just give you one more example, and I hope people are listening to this and going, "Oh, well, yeah, I had something like that happen to me." And I did an interview with a fellow named Bullis for another podcast. Yes, there were other podcasts. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of it, we had a personal conversation, and he told me of this uncanny these experiences that happened to him, where well, I won't get into it, but uncanny, wonderful. I want people to share these experiences with you, with with me in some form if they can. But okay, I at one point in my career, I was living with a wonderful creative person named Diana Dew, who created electric clothing. Electric dresses during the disco era. She had the translucent panels, plastic panels in vinyl dresses, and a control on a belt so that the panels would light up and move around your body in sync with the music. You could adjust it to be in sync with the music. Diana Dew's electric dresses. You can Google it and you'll see. And at the end of when she stopped manufacturing these, Salvador Dali bought her entire inventory. Okay. Now, why did I bring her up? Oh, let me think. What was I talking about? Coincidence. Yes, coincidence. Well, that's not enough. Oh, yes, here it is. This is it. At a certain point, I'm back in New York. I'm closing up my apartment in the Village. I knew that I had a future with Firesign Theater. This was pretty early in Firesign Theater career. We just kind of gotten started on the radio, and I was thinking, something's going to happen, and I have to be out in California. I have to leave my New York life, my Broadway life, my off-Broadway life behind, my soap opera life behind, and so I'm with Diane. And at this one particular day, I just said to myself, it's over. This affair is over. Something has got to happen. And I went downstairs, where we were living in the East Village. And I said, Diana, we've got to move on. And she said, I agree. Ring. Phone rings. Ring. Hello, Phil, it's for you. Hi, who's this? Hi, Phil, it's Pete. We're going to be doing our first record. It's called Waiting for the Electrician or Someone Like Him at Columbia. And there's a ticket waiting for you at Black Rock in New York. Go get it and fly out here as soon as you can.
Just like that.
Just like that. That's the truth.
Yeah.
And there are other instances in the book where that kind of thing also happened. I met Peter Bergman. This is not chronological. Do you mind if I tell one more story?
No, let's go.
This is all how Firesign Theater began. I came out I came out to Los Angeles the first time with a show that I won a Theater World Award for called The Amorous Flea. It was a musical based on Molière's School for Wives. We did it at the York Playhouse in New York. It was so successful, we got a gig at the Las Palmas Theater in Hollywood. I'd never been there before. But I flew out, and I was doing this wonderful musical. And the award, by the way, presentation in New York, I was awarded the presentation by Paul Newman, who I used to watch drinking beer with his wife when I was dating a girl named Nadia Lesher in the village, and her apartment overlooked their backyard stoop. Please, go figure. So I go and I do the show. I get a Broadway musical. I fly back. I do the Broadway musical. Time for singing. I then understudied Brandon DeWilde, who was, Shane, come back, Shane, the kid actor. Brandon DeWilde in a play called A Race of Hairy Men by Evan Hunter. Didn't have a very good run, but Brandon and I bonded together. Turns out he's married one of my classmates. He'd married the sister of one of my classmates at Yale, Susan, and we became very close friends. And he decides to drive out to L.A. to get back in the movies. So we drove out to L.A. together. There we connected up with Peter Fonda. Can't remember exactly why. He knew Peter, I guess. And we started hanging out together, like the Three Musketeers. And Peter was doing research for a little movie idea that he had called Captain America, which is the name of his character, but he couldn't get the rights to use that title because of Marvel Comics or whatever owned it. So he changed it to Easy Rider,
right?
Which means a guy who's living off of a prostitute. Okay, Terry Southern gave him that title, that name. So he's researching the youth movement because remember, part of the movie was about visiting a commune and all this.
That's
so
right.
One night, Brandon and Peter and I go to the Sunset Strip because they're having a demonstration against a curfew, right, that they wanted to impose on young people to suppress demonstrations against the Vietnamese War and stop public pot smoking in the street and all what have you. And during that demonstration, where the police were on one side of the street and the sheriff on the other, and they did a classic pincer movement to force a riot, and then they started beating people up and everything.
And this was on Sunset Boulevard, right?
Yeah, it became known as the Sunset Strip riot.
That's right. That's
okay?
right. Yep.
So
I remember.
During that particular thing, I sat down. We did kind of like a sit down. We're not moving. We shall not be moved. I sat down on an open copy of the L.A. Free Press. I pulled it out from under my ass. I had sat down on Peter Bergman's face. I had sat down on a picture of my classmate at Yale, Peter Bergman, who'd written the lyrics for two musicals by Austin Pendleton that I'd starred in, Booth is Back in Town and Tom Jones. And there's Peter Bergman. And it said, KPFK newsman Peter Bergman interviews returning war veterans, Vietnam War veterans. So I said, well, I've got to get in touch with Peter. So at the end of this riot, I was working for the LA for the East Village Other, an alternative newspaper at the time. And I held up my press card, and the cops just flowed around me. But Peter got beaten up, and Brandon got arrested, or vice versa. I can't remember. And then the next morning, I called up Peter Bergman. And he said, oh, yeah, I'm the Wizard of Oz. I said, what are you talking about? He said, I do a show called Radio Free Oz. It's a counterculture talk show. I'm on, from 9 to 12. Why don't you come and join us? That was the night I met the rest of the Firesign Theater.
That's an incredible story. But what's even stranger is your career with KPFK, that entire crowd. But all of it stemmed off of what happened at the Sunset Strip riot.
Sunset Strip riots. Yes.
And so at what point do you just throw in the towel and go, you know what, I need to start reacting to these things that are happening to me?
Yeah, well, we do.
Right.
We do react to these things. You can react negatively or you can react positively. You can embrace it and accept it, or you can deny it, right? I'm sure if we got into a private conversation, you could tell me stories about things that led you to where you are right now, with your listenership and your fascination with the ufology, which began early in your life, right?
Right, but a lot of it happened right on the Sunset Strip about 15 years later, which is even stranger. And I'll tell you something else. I have so many friends and coworkers that work over at KPFK now. And my call screener this weekend over at Coast, I'm over at Coast hosting.
Yep.
And she works over at KPFK. And I said, guess who I have on the show this week? And she was like, man, so life is full of this kind of stuff, and you can't ignore it. You cannot ignore it.
It is, and it really. When I say the invisible world, what I'm talking about are these connections. They're invisible connections, but they're real, and some of them are merely coincidental, some of them are spiritual, some of them have to do with the work you've created, what you've sent out, but it's a network of minds and spirits and entities that are somehow or another part of this magical network that exists in the universe. Dimension. This is what dimensionality is all about. Now, let me tell you something. Since we talked about the aliens, I'm going to tell you one other thing that Sharon said to me, and I want you to tell me if you've heard anything similar to this.
Go.
Because I think about this occasionally. That particular evening, we talked very, very seriously about what this whole alien connection thing is about, and why it's happening, and what is at stake. And one of the things that she told me from her experiences was that there are two alien forms, two races that have been making contact. Now, here they are, and you tell me if this sounds familiar. One are the tall, spindly ones, and the other are the little childish gray ones.
Mm-hmm.
And she said the little childish gray ones are like us. They believe in the universality of all being, and they believe in the power of love, if you will, the force that keeps the universe humming, that keeps us creating, that causes physical mating and union and the propagation of our beings, of our spirits, our souls, of our experiment in this dimension. The others, the tall, spindly ones, are the fascists. They actually employ other alien races in their ships and in their societies, and they believe in the master race. They are what you would call the Illuminati, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you think about this, again, we think of it perhaps as a metaphor. No, I'm not saying this right. If that is true, okay, then it means that these forces of what we would call good and evil, but that's being, subjective. Objectively, these particular forces of ways of thinking and being, okay, and managing the world, one's own world, and therefore the universe, are kind of universal. That they may be where we get the source of Satan and God and good and evil and all of those metaphors that we live with in this dimension, in our translation of these perceptions into our own dimensional realities and the way that we function and interact with one another and, in fact, with the universe, with God.
I think, out of the 1,000+ interviews that I have done with various contactees, researchers, authors, and so forth, that our information, our knowledge, which is growing every single day, we have the internet and experience
Correct.
And so forth, that looking back throughout history, going back thousands and thousands of years, that metaphor, which is the wrong way to put it, but it's an accurate way to say it, is the only answer that they had 5,000 years ago for what was going on. So let's make it angels and demons. Let's make it light and dark. Let's make it fire and warmth. It's the only answer to the masses 5,000 years ago. That would make sense to them. Right?
That makes sense to me.
Yes.
But on the other hand, the principles of this dimension and of this universal manifestation are yin and yang.
And continue that way.
Well, yeah, male and female, dark and light.
Positive, negative, the universe.
The black hole versus the bursting supernova.
Right.
It seems to be principles of this bizarre expression that we are a teeny tiny little infinitesimal part of, but also a huge part of, right? Macro and micro.
Yes.
It seems to be, which is why I call it a metaphor, because it's you cannot really wrap your head around it, but you cannot also deny that it seems to be a pervasive truth in the struggle to find meaning in existence, or to become, part of an evolving knowledge of existence in this particular manifestation of being. Because I do believe that there are many other manifestations of being, and there might be manifestations of being where all is pure light.
Have you made direct contact? Have you asked one of these beings these questions?
The only contact that I can honestly, and believe me, I have friends who could tell you stories about what they believe was actual contact, was lost hours and real contact with aliens. I have not had these kinds of experiences. They've all been these secondary experiences I've talked about.
Right.
But I had at one point a dream that stayed with me to this day. I can see it right now in my mind. And it was during the time that I was really beginning to talk to Sharon and to find where my curiosity about these things was beginning to be satisfied by stories, personal stories of things. In that dream, I was aboard an alien vessel, and I was talking to one of the commanders of the vessel, and he looked humanoid. And at a certain point, I thought to myself, well, this is manifesting. He's manifesting it telepathically, an image of what I'd like to see. He's controlling my perception. And once I said that, he became an alien creature. He just changed into an alien creature, and he acknowledged that was what was going on.
I trust my dreams. I trust them. I trust them. And there's always a message there. Now, with something like that, which is vivid and significant, are you comfortable in thinking that maybe this actually happened?
Well, you see, I can't. It happened to me in my consciousness.
Right.
But it did not. It did not happen to me, to my knowledge, physically. I'm going to give you another example of that. I started to tell you about one of the hosts I talked to, who shared with me an experience that he had. Here's his experience. See if this resonates with you or anybody out there.
Okay, we've got 60 seconds, Phil.
I can tell it quickly.
Okay.
He had a dream, and his grandfather died. He had a dream that night that he went down to the kitchen to get a glass of water, and there was his grandfather standing in a golden robe, and he acknowledged him, went back to bed, and then woke up the next morning and thought, well, I must have dreamed this, and there was a glass of water by his bedside table. He goes downstairs and he tells this story, or starts to tell this story, to his mother. And his mother said, I had a dream last night. I dreamed that your grandfather came back, and he was wearing a golden bathrobe.
No punchline there. That's just laying it straight out.
I think so.
I don't question anything like that anymore. I don't. And when we come back, we're going to take a break right here. But when we come back, I actually want to explore that side of things, in that the world used to be different. We used to be the tinfoil hat crowd. Now we're the normal ones, Phil. And we'll talk about that right after the break. Stay with us.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. This is Rob Halford, the Metal Guard, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station, Salt Lake City, Utah, Van Buren, Arkansas.
Okay, nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation, and Angioprim is the result. A safe and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slow circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away.
Log on now for a special radio offer from Angioprim. That's angioprim.com/radio. ANGIOPRIM. Angioprim.com/radio or call 877-882-7221. That's 877-882-7221.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on the smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Your contact for current news and trending topics. KGRARadio.com.
Do you worry a lot? If you're forgetful, nervous, moody, or overwhelmed, chances are you're not protecting yourself from the ravaging effects of stress and anxiety. No matter the cause, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, your quality of life, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in as little as 1 to 2 weeks and increase your ability to recall facts, names, and numbers in 4 to 12 weeks. Calm and Clever was created by scientist Kurt Hendricks, a principal investigator in 2 NIH-funded studies on Alzheimer's disease. Try Calm and Clever for 2 months. You'll feel the difference. Call 1-800-758-8746 or go to calmandclever.com.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of Fade to Black by just calling 605-562-4482. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Just call 605-562-4482. You can listen to me, Jimmy Church, on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Go Beckley Tappy.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why fade to black? Because you never got that pony, damn
it. This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Once again, you can follow me on Twitter. Twitter, I have not seen Twitter like this, and I know I say it every night. It's out of control. Hashtag F2B is the sandbox. Come and follow us at JChurch Radio, and you can follow Phil at Phil Proctor. Our guest tonight, Phil Proctor, Firesign Theater. The new book is Where's My Fortune Cookie? And we're talking about some of the stuff in the book, but it's more about the life and times of Phil, and I'm really enjoying the conversation. But Phil, I wanted to go back to something that you said earlier about podcasts. This show is this is a live radio show, and we syndicate this out. The podcast happens tomorrow. It's just the archive of the show. Gotcha. But what this does now, this is the new medium. Just like you guys were breaking ground. And creating your own universe around you, and then the world changed. This is, the new medium today, and it's really great. But this is the point.
I was comfortable in our weirdness, my audience's weirdness and our little thing. And over the years, something started to change. Everything that I talked about years ago, fake news, be careful of the media, the conspiracies of the world, and life is not what we think it is. Well, now we have been proven right. So now we're not the odd man out, right? We're not.
No.
We are now normal. And the rest of the world out there that was safe, and they thought that you know what I mean? It's now flipped. Yes. Are you comfortable in that? Because it's happening. You know, yeah. I kind of like being the weird one. Now I'm the normal guy.
I think, Jimmy, that we're all pod people. Okay? And we're bursting out of our cocoons now and manifesting ourselves. The Firesign Theater asked a very important question in our second album. No, in Dwarf. Don't Crush That Dwarf, Hand Me the Pliers. And that question was, what is reality? Okay?
Right.
Two of our characters, Pico and Alvarado, I think, posed it. What is reality, man? You know, and when you look at the world today, and I'm sitting in Washington, AC/DC now, right? with a surreal president,
right?
You know, a president who creates daily, hourly, minute by minute, his own reality.
Right.
He's a reality show star because he creates his own reality and then expects us to kind of accept it. See? And I think that as you pointed out, we've reached a certain point of clarity in evolution. Well, evolution. In the slow but steady evolutionary trek that we take, where there's kind of, I think, a tipping point. I think we're reaching a tipping point, okay? And I think that even if you look at the news of the day, which I'm getting from the Washington Post here in Washington, D.C.
There you go.
Right, and you see that even the party that this man supposedly represents, okay, but doesn't embrace, obviously, is beginning to find it more and more difficult to hold on to their perception of their relationship to the reality that this guy is manifesting every day because it's so unreal.
Well,
right?
And we wanted that. And we wanted,
yes,
and not so much Trump. When I say we wanted that, we wanted pot to be legalized. We wanted to be able to dress and act and have free and recognize that the media, right? And George Orwell and the Ministry of Truth, and we wanted all of these things. And now we have a president that talks about the deep state and fake news. Holy crap. Well, this is what we wanted, and now suddenly I'm not really comfortable with it. I'm not.
Oh, okay. Now this is complex. This is fading to black for sure.
Sure.
Okay? Because really what's going on is you've got a war between the past and the present going on. And the present is the future. And there are the forces of darkness are the forces that want to stay in the Dark Ages, that want to, in fact, go back to the Dark Ages. They want to roll all the things you're talking about back. They want to deny those things, okay? Negate those things. They want to pretend that they didn't happen and they are not happening, and by doing that, they want to say it will not happen. It will never happen. It isn't going to happen. But it's happened. You see?
Yes.
So in a sense, if people who look, this is the way we look at liberal and conservative thought, if you will. A liberal thought, basically, in its unopposed sense, in its non-political sense, is the desire to evolve, the desire to take chances, the desire to seek good, the desire to help others, the desire to open one's mind to new ideas, and not be afraid to manifest them, to try them. And And the conservative idea is, it's not so fast. It worked pretty well the way we had it. Why don't mess with it.
Right.
Let's just keep it. In fact, let's go back because it worked even better back then when we controlled everything and we knew it. And so you've got these two opposing forces. The only way that the world evolves is through compromise and cooperation. Sorry, that's the only way it evolves. The world can manifest through conflict. We can blow each other up. Sure, you can do that. War is, obviously something that seems necessary to the human condition because we can't compromise. We don't seem to be able to focus our energies and our spirits and our hearts and our minds towards solving conflict, human conflict. And our poor country is being torn asunder because we have a leader now who thrives on conflict. He's a drama queen. Because he's a reality show guy. I was the announcer on Big Brother for 3 years. Previously on Big Brother 3. Okay? I had your voice then. And right? And they thrive on conflict. It's a game. There's a winner and a loser, right?
Right.
And that's where he comes from, and that's his mindset. He should never have been elected president of the United States of America. He's not qualified, and he's not capable. But we got him. There he is. What are we going to do about it? How can we, within the confines of our democracy, our democratic process, if we believe in it and if it still functions, how can we make it okay? How can we either adjust to him or replace him? Not that Pence is any better, frankly, but a pound for a penny. What are you going to do? Pence and his ilk also are backward thinkers. They want to roll things back. And the religious fanaticism has taken over the entire world, and we're suffering from it as much as the crazy Mideastern nations are, okay? Mike Pence is a guy who won't take another woman out to dinner because it goes against his religious principles. Now, is that nuts or what?
Yeah, but
he's
okay.
A manifestation of no nuts.
Right.
What?
But he's okay with lobbing Tomahawk missiles into villages somewhere.
Manly thing to do.
Right.
It's a manly thing to do. God is a fierce and strict God. I remember reading a wonderful explanation of why we look at God the way we do. It was a preacher who I read had this interpretation. In the Bible, the vengeful God is like the early father to the child. Okay, he's all powerful, and he is doing everything he can to control the child and make sure that the child grows up safely and well.
Right.
But he's got total control over that child. And he can punish that child if that child doesn't behave properly. And then later, as the child grows up and begins to take responsibility, the father becomes more of a companion to the child, more of a loving God, more of a nurturing God, more of a protecting God. No, but here's the catch. It's a male-centric point of view. It's a male point of view. Okay? It's not yin and yang. It's not a transsexual God. It's not a God that encompasses the mother spirit and the father spirit. It's just the father spirit. It's the warrior spirit. And it comes out of our early tribal experiences.
It certainly does. And I avoid politics on this show like the plague, right? And certainly today, the divide and conquer, just bringing up, it doesn't matter what you do, what you say, everybody's now completely polarized, and it's nearly violent. And we've seen this blow up in social media, right?
Yeah, sure.
So, and we're sitting here talking about Trump, but I'm not so sure that it doesn't matter anymore. I think both sides.
It's interesting. I said that early on when we took a trans-Canadian railroad trip from Vancouver to Toronto, and I recommend it to anybody. It's a 4-day trip. It's wonderful. And there were a lot of foreign people on the trip, and they were all terribly concerned that the Conservative Party was going to win in America and that Trump would be elected. And I said, oh, no, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And in a sense, it doesn't matter because it's all about growing pains. It's all about coming to grips with reality. It's all about finding, if you will, the balance in that polarization. And I agree with you. It's kind of a dangerous place to be. Firesign Theater, we did not overtly politicize our message because we feel the same way you do. And our basic message was, it's up to you to find your path in life in spite of all of these divisions and in spite of this conflict. Right?
Right.
If you really believe in a loving path or in a creative expression of yourself, you have to rise above it. And I'm telling you, and find your own way. And I'm telling you, when you start playing in social media, this is why I'm talking about a tipping point. You find more and more people going, oh, I had to unfriend this guy, or I had to unfriend, or some troll was yelling at me and doing this and that. And you see all of this kind of the divisiveness that is expressed in the social world, the political world, I should say, is manifesting socially, and people have to deal with it because it's a lesson we have to learn now. It's a lesson we brought upon ourselves, and we have to learn.
Some of the other things that you discussed so many years ago about and the satire of commercials or the satire of our world or what is reality and what is not. Last year, with the revelation that fake news was driving emotion around the world, ebb and flow, millions of people just freaking out and going in all of these directions based on fakeness. And that right there, the whole Orwellian ministry of truth and what you're being fed is a lie. And then suddenly everybody had to step back and go, wait a minute. That stuff was fake. I thought it was real. Now they don't know, and this is the rub. They don't know if what is being fed to them on the mainstream media is real or not. Now they have to second guess their own reality. But you've been talking about that for a long, long time. Now you have to step back and go, wow, I was right. This is the reality we live in today. How do you react to that?
Well, I've always felt, and this is why I studied the mind and my own consciousness, and I learned it actually through the ingestion of psychedelic drugs when I went through an experimental period to see what that was all about.
Right.
That number one, we believe what we want to believe. But number two, if you experience anything psychedelic, you realize that your mind manifests itself in terms of perceptions that you apply to the world. In other words, if you're on a drug that manifests the mind, that's what psychedelic means, basically, manifesting the mind. And you look at a wall, and that wall has wallpaper on it, and the wallpaper is a forest scene in a pattern. And you say to yourself in your mind, I'm in a forest. That pattern will manifest. It'll start moving. It'll start living. It will look like a forest. It's not a forest. It's a wallpaper. But in your mind, you have asked your mind to perceive it that way. That's what happens. People want to believe what they manifest in their mind. And that's why you have this polarization, because they cannot see reality. There is no objective reality anymore. There is objective reality when it comes to truth and lies. There is. And you do it by fact-checking, right? You do it by not mindlessly forwarding something that proves your point socially or politically about something. You check it out first.
And nobody does.
No, because people are lazy and they want to believe. This is why we have religion. They want to believe in something. They want to surrender their own individual power of choice, their own existential reality to choose right or wrong. They want to surrender that to a group thought, groupthink. They want to surrender so they're comfortable being a part of a movement. They're marching with the tiki torches. Look at all the people marching behind me with my tiki torches in my hand. I'm part of a movement. I'm part of a group. I'm doing something. I belong. I'm in a family, and this is the kind of thinking that is just, it's built into the instincts, I guess, the DNA of this particular creation that we are. And you have to think more objectively, but not everybody can. Not everybody wants to. Not everybody will.
Before we run out of time, staying on the same subject, but I want to...
Hey, don't say we're running out of time. We're at the edge of a nuclear disaster. Let's just say before we end the show.
Oh, you know what? Check this out. You keep that up, you're going to be doing overtime, okay, young man? Is this, with the enjoyment of science fiction and creative writing and Philip K. Dick and some of the things that went down in the 60s and 70s about... the future would be reality television and cameras in living rooms and
Ray Bradbury.
And we laughed about it. And here you go, and you're the voice of Big Brother. Seriously, when you were watching, did you really? You had to ask yourself, how did we get here? We are now living the future, and this wasn't supposed to be. This was imagination, and this was fun and games 20 years ago. But scripted television is now gone, and everybody wants to watch somebody else's life. And now everybody is, what are they doing now? They're live streaming on Facebook, their living room. What do you think is actually going on with pop culture?
Well, it's a tabloid culture, basically. News stopped being objective and became newsertainment, enter newsment, right?
Right. That's good.
It's driven by the profit motive. Okay, that is in this particular society, which is not democratic socialism. It's capitalism. It's democratic capitalism, if we can still call it democratic. It's a republic, right? But it's basically ruled by economic groups. It's a corporate world that we live in, and the corporate world is primarily focused on profit. Not profit like PROPHET, lead me. It's profit, PROFIT, which I can get my hands on. I can dig into those gold coins and run them through my fingers, and that's my future. That's my protection. And because things are run by the profit motive primarily, that's just what it is. I'm not saying it's good or bad, but if that's the way you choose to run your society, then these are going to be the results of it, because you're not going to view things objectively. You're going to view things in terms of what makes people watch you and pay for you, okay? Rush Limbaugh has said quite clearly always that he's an entertainer. All of these guys, Hannity and all of these guys who have politicized and weaponized entertainment, basically hide behind it. They say, I am not a newsman. I am an entertainer. Well, if you're an entertainer and you talk about things that affect people's lives, that influence them politically or socially, or influence the way democracy works, because you're telling people how they should vote by planting ideas in their heads that make them fearful, right, or make them, feel that they need to be more powerful, then you are stepping beyond the role of entertainment, and you're stepping into propagandism, and you're stepping into, as you said, double thought, double think, and the ministry of truth and all of that, because you are basically creating an illusion that you want people to accept as a reality. Okay?
And they're injecting the news now with everybody that you just named has turned into opinion. And I don't understand that. It's opinion, and it's not news, and that is exactly.
But you know something, Jimmy? When I first came out to L.A. from New York, I was a stranger in a strange land. New York was a very intellectual, elite-driven, very objective place to grow up. Very European, influenced by many cultures, very diverse. This is New York, and I was there from 1945 to 1956, and then finally 65. And basically, when I came out here with the play, The Amorous Flea, the musical, and I turned on the television, I saw newscasters saying, and this is one fella's opinion, okay? And he would do an editorial against the hippies. One fella's opinion. And that was exactly what you're saying. That was in the 50s, okay? In the 60s, mid-60s is when I was really out here. So a news program was already editorializing as part of the entertainment and the draw to it. And remember, it was a time when Pine and all of these crazy cigarette smoking guys yelling at their audience were all starting, and they were all political. Sit down. Remember, leading to all of this, the shows with the women and the men fighting and all that kind of stuff.
Wally George. You remember Wally George? Love
exactly.
Wally George. Love Wally. Yeah, in Sherman Oaks, at my bank, we banked at the same bank. And I would see Wally all the time coming in with his toupee, and I was just he was the future, and he did not know it. The audience mostly doesn't know what we're talking about, but Wally George was a talk show conservative guy on, what was it, Channel 56 or something? I forget.
Jeez, I thought he was on even a more popular channel, but he was pioneering antagonistic, polarizing television with a live audience in order to create entertainment, tension entertainment. It was adding sports to politics. Right?
And he had the American flag behind him, you remember?
Sure, of course. What the point I'm making is it hasn't really changed.
Right.
It's just become more all-pervasive because the formula works.
It does. It does.
It's a profit-making formula. It works. And it's now just about, as you also I've been pointing out during this show, it's about the platforms that exist. And I'm suggesting that some of these platforms, one of which we're on right now, are reaching a certain kind of specialized audience that is more tuned in, more intelligent, less divisive in their thinking, less prejudiced in their thinking, and I believe that there's good and energy in that kind of gathering of minds. The Firesign Theater was successful not only because we were reaching hip pockets in the backside of America, all right, with intelligent comedy that also had low slapstick and everything, but FM radio manifested while we were out there. Remember, we were creating records that could be listened to in the privacy of your own home. That's why we got away with some of the language that we used in our early records, right?
Right.
We didn't think it was going to be broadcast. It was just for home consumption. And then FM radio came along, and it primarily was manifested in campus radio stations. Maybe you were even involved in it. I don't know. And suddenly people could play, a 20-minute side of a record without any commercial interruption on this new format of stereo broadcasting. And that's where we really reached our widest audiences. That's why our audiences grew exponentially. But they wouldn't put us on television. We didn't have the kind of atmosphere that Monty Python had, which was, the embracement of surrealism, even though, and I should have mentioned this too, the Goon shows influenced us greatly,
right.
Which was, a long-running surrealistic radio show in England starring Peter Sellers and Spike Milligan, who Peter Bergman actually wrote with in England years ago. And that kind of thing has always been embraced. Eccentricity has always been embraced socially and politically by the English, not so much by the Americans. Very conservative Victorian society. And therefore, Firesign Theater, which was dangerous to television. We only did a few local shows because it was like, these guys are, they're making fun of the medium and making fun of maybe of us and, the formats that we were using to reach people. And they didn't get the comedy of it, the humor of it, because it wasn't part of their DNA.
Did you ever get a chance to meet Peter Sellers?
No, I never did. However, and it's in the book, I met his daughter, Victoria, because she opened a whorehouse on our street in Beverly Hills, and her body dogs her bodyguard's dog ate my bed. I know, it's true. It's true. Now, Heidi Fleiss. All right, Victoria Sellers was Heidi Fleiss's best friend.
Right.
And another girl named Irene Sue, woman, who's a realtor, who was married to Ivan Naj. Name sound familiar?
Yes.
Ivan Naj was Heidi Fleiss's boyfriend.
Oh, yes.
He's a Hungarian-American director.
Yep.
He was a friend of mine because Irene Sue was a friend of mine, and they lived in this next street over from where I presently live. And Irene Sue rented this house on our street, which belonged to Bob Ginty, who I went to Yale with, who was a director who ended up in Ireland directing things, which is why the house was up for rent. And she moved in, and she opened a little whorehouse there for Heidi Fleiss. And her
She opened a what? Say it one more time.
What, the bodyguard?
No, what did she open? What did she open?
A pleasure house. Okay. A house of pleasure. House of male fun.
Back in the 80s at the Roxy, they had a little nightclub upstairs, a little bar. And I can't remember the name of the place, but I remember
on the rocks.
On the rocks. And the rumors would go around. She's a madam, and they would point at her. I never talked to her. I never met her. Never hung out. But I would always just kind of look, and she always had the women around her,
the pretty girls.
Yeah,
sure. What happened was that her bodyguard was named Lucky, and he had a pit bull. And we had a beautiful cat named Chester. And the pit bull, one day when we were out shopping, broke in through the cat door, chasing our cat. Chester got out of the house, chased our cat into our bedroom, and this is a pit bull. They're very strong jaws, and actually ate the side of the bed. It was reduced to sawdust and saliva. This dog is so strong because our cat was hiding under the bed. Okay?
Right.
And when we came back, our bed had been eaten. I have pictures of it. And it was on NPR. They interviewed me on NPR about this. Okay? And it was soon thereafter that we got them off the street because I called Ginty's lawyer and said, this can't go on. This can't go on. And actually, when her Money, his name was Money. When the bodyguard Money, a little black fellow with a big gold chain, when he came over to get his dog back, and he saw the bed, he fell to the ground. He was so shocked.
Sawdust,
he fell to the ground.
Sawdust and saliva.
Sawdust and saliva. I have pictures of it. We had it repaired, but my God, you wouldn't believe it. And she said, I'll pay for it. I said, no. You don't have to pay for it. Just don't let it happen again. And I called Giddy's lawyer and said, this is what happened. What can you do? And they were off the street.
Right. And what's so amazing about, I can't even believe that you just mentioned On the Rocks, but Hollywood is a trippy place. And I wanted to ask you about Jim Carrey's rant on the red carpet in New York. Did you see the video?
No. What happened?
Okay. Well, Jim Carrey, they came up, the standard, Entertainment Tonight, red carpet host,
thing,
right?
Yeah.
Here's Jim Carrey. Jim, so I'm paraphrasing. You're walking the streets alone. His girlfriend has just committed suicide, and that was a faux pas. But
when did this happen?
A couple of weeks ago.
Oh, my goodness.
So when we're done, just Google Jim Carrey red carpet, and you will see what happens.
Okay.
But anyway, he goes off. And he went into, this is not a reality. It was Fashion Week in New York, right? And he's there at the big Fashion Week party and celebration and recognition of Icon Night, right? That's what it was. And he's like, this is all reality. This isn't. I'm not real. You're not real. We're here toasting icons tonight. Oh, that's the stupidest thing I could ever think of. And it just absolutely blisters her and then walks away.
Well, you see, the leader of the free world is demonstrating that kind of uncontrolled behavior and a subconscious blathering. He can kind of say whatever he wants to. And so I think subconsciously everybody kind of is feeling that pressure or that release, if you will. And I think people are very edgy right now. Again, I use the word tipping point because I think something's happening. I don't know what the result's going to be, but that's what happens when you don't have power. You just have to kind of watch and protect yourself as best you can. You know what's cover weird? Your solar plexus.
Yeah, and
you said Hollywood's a trippy place. Just be careful you don't trip.
Well, you bring up a good point. You went through, so did I. I was a little younger than you, not by much. I'm 53. But I remember the 60s. I remember segregation. I remember the racial tensions. I went through all of that. I went through busing in the 70s. We all went through all. And do you feel that quite possibly we could be going through that kind of change? Are we there? Are we experiencing, our version of the 60s?
Yes, we are. I saw a very intelligent professor of trends, if you will, of history talk about this. And he said, people don't remember things. But when we were back in the 60s, we were experiencing very similar kind of extremist behavior. And we thought, since we had elected a black president, that we had kind of transcended that period in our history, and that racism and inequality and mistreatment of or not acceptance of diversity was kind of behind us, or at least we were moving in that direction.
Right.
And and it just ain't so. Even during the Obama years, it was clear to anybody who had their eyes open that there was there was tremendous prejudice. Look at how his programs were blocked. You saw a Republican woman today. I don't know whether she's just a spokesperson or a shill or a representative, saying how the Democrats are responsible for all the problems now because they're blocking everything. And it's just like, the latest scandal about the emails, the thing that brought Hillary down, right?
Right.
Is now pervasive, is admittedly pervasive in the Trump administration as well. So the hypocrisy is mind-boggling, and no wonder people are going crazy. You know what I mean? How do you hold these disparate thoughts in your head, and how do you feel that any of it is helpful or healing or good for the nation or good for your own spirit and your own soul when you've got people who are lying and are so deceitful and so transparently full of hypocrisy? You can't wrap your poor little head around it, It's mind-boggling.
I can't wait till you get back to California. And I want to, really quick, I want you to just, in your own voice, tell us what's going to go down on Thursday.
Okay. Thursday, as I say, we were invited to do a performance at the Library of Congress because they seem to be at the point that they're going to purchase our archives, which is very, very satisfying. And what David Osman and I are the only surviving members of a four-man group called the Firesign Theater, which, as we've demonstrated, I hope to your listeners who may not know us, that we had a cultural effect on the country, certainly in the late 60s, mid-60s, 70s, and really over the last 50 years. So what David and I are doing, since we are the Firesign Theater, or what's left of it, the last two members, we're doing a piece called The History of Radio, which we feel is appropriate for the honor of being on the stage at the Coolidge Theater at the Library of Congress. And it's a piece that we've adopted and updated from a show that we did many years ago in the 70s for the Arley Convention, which was a convention of National Public Radio broadcasters in Arley, Virginia. And basically, we are extrapolating the history of radio from from the wireless society, the telegraphic society, up through the history of radio as an entertainment format, as a patriotic propaganda format during the Second World War, up to its influence on television and its death at the hands of television, and then the Firesign Theater transmogrifying radio into a record form and bringing it up to the modern time so that people could continue to make movies in their mind and to be influenced by the power of the word and the image of sound and music mixed together in a particular way. And that's kind of where that takes us. Then we're going to show some home movies of the actual making, which we have, of Don't Crush That Dwarf, Hand Me the Pliers in the Columbia Studios, which used to be radio studios, by the way. Our first records were done in Columbia Square in old radio studios, okay? And then after that, we're going to open it to a question and answer format that Matt Barton, who is the curator of audio, of all things audio for the library, will guide the audience through. And that's basically going to be it. It's kind of a celebration of the Firesign Theater, even though we're not all there to celebrate it.
That is such an honor. And it must make you feel really, really good that you have, left your mark, and the legacy will be there forever with the Library of Congress. I mean, seriously, that must feel really cool.
It does, and it's very sweet of you to acknowledge that. It's an overflow crowd, so they're going to have a big screen in an annex room it's 500 people in the auditorium, maybe another 200 overflow, and it will be eventually edited together and posted on the Library of Congress website. So it's a great honor, and it's encouraging to see that David and I can, we hope, continue the legacy of the Firesign and perhaps present it to a new audience as well before we shuffle off this mortal coil.
Thank you so much, Phil, and safe travels back to Los Angeles, and we'll see you when you get back here, and then we'll do some other things together. Thank you so much,
I will be coming coast to see you.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you so much, Phil, and have a great time Thursday night. Enjoy yourself.
Thank you, Jimmy. Love to you and love to your audience.
Thank you so much. Phil Proctor, everybody. Great conversation. And I do believe it's live streaming, too, as well. And go over to FiresignTheater.com. The links are at JimmyChurchRadio.com. And check that out. I'm going to take a quick break, and I'll get back with all of the news that you know absolutely nothing about. Thank you, Phil. Great conversation. I'll be right back.
Listen to my boy, Jimmy Church, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
So you went to dinner last night and you had your favorite pasta. Ugh. Or maybe you had a heavy, spicy meal and it left you. Ugh. GetTheTea.com. Maybe you mowed down a huge steak and your plumbing is all plugged. Ugh. GetTheTea.com. Our super strength tea will take care of your occasional. Ugh. It's all organic and non-GMO. Get rid of ugh. We have so many great supplements, but our super tea is number one. GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of fade to black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Yes, River Moon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2B blend for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy.
I'm Matt Ray with America's First News. We all know if you're planning a trip, you should shop and compare, right? But why endlessly search the web when you don't have to? Flight Services helps you find the lowest possible airfare. Talk directly to a travel pro right now for the best deals available. Their travel pros have additional discounts not found on websites, and Flight Services provides 24-hour customer service. Call toll-free 844-845-9944. That's 844-845-9944.
What's up, Fadernauts?
Studio Dome loves Fade to Black and the F2B audience so much that they have put together the ultimate stereo Bluetooth system. They've done it just for you. Man, check this out. The Studio Dome SBB2 stereo system is here. It's featuring 2 Studio Boombox 2 SBB2 wireless Bluetooth speakers, packed in its own custom hardshell case. This Studio Dome system features the very latest in stereo Bluetooth technology. The 2 full-range boomboxes are in true wireless stereo. You've got to hear this. It's amazing. It's just $129, and use the promo code JCRTWS, and you'll also get free shipping. It's simple. Just go to jimmychurchradio.com, click on the Studio Dome banner. Go Beckley Teppy.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way. KGRAradio.com.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
All right, welcome back. Well, at this point, you know what I'm going to say. That was an amazing conversation with Phil. Thank you, Phil Proctor. And I want to thank Phil right now for allowing me to indulge, because he and what everybody did over at Firesign for so many years just influenced a couple of generations. But for me, the first time, Nick Danger, right? The first time that I was able to put on headphones, and I said this to Phil earlier today, and I really mean this. I put on headphones and I listened, and I thought to myself, this is what can be done, right? It's funny, it's satire, it's life, it's reality, it's aliens, it's the supernatural, it's all of these things, but done in a storytelling, cinematic fashion. That I was able to realize what painting a picture, how you could do it, and that it was possible. And to have Phil on the show tonight, I just have to say that it was one of those things for me to communicate directly to somebody that influenced me so much. When you listen to this show, we try to make sure that it sounds good, that there is life to it, that there is it is done a little bit differently, and there's a production value here, and that each show I want to be able to take everybody through a real Panavision, epic, cinematic type of journey where the guest and the communication and the conversation has color. And there is a thing that you can do with your imagination and just go down this road, right? And you come out of it 3 hours later Just like, wow, that was cool. And I went there, and my imagination went there, and I learned something, right? That's what I try to do. And I'm telling you, Firesign Theater enabled me that it could be done, right? That it is possible. And so that's why this show was so special for me tonight. So thank you, Phil. And yes, we'll have Phil on Coast to Coast and in a couple of weeks, because he's a huge fan of what we do, right? And that I just got to let you guys know that he knows what this audience is about, right? And that was key. How cool was that conversation? All right, I've only got a few minutes left, but I've got some very, very important news that you know absolutely nothing about. And this first little piece of news here, just buckle up and listen to this and take some notes, because where there's a will, there's a way. And I talk about this all the time. And hackers, they have plenty of will, and they have all the countless ways to attack a secure network, even if it's not even connected to the internet. And what, right? The latest demonstration proving that no network is safe. Researchers at the Ben-Gurion University of the Negev used security cameras equipped with night vision to send and receive data from a network that wasn't even connected to the internet. Firewalls, intrusion detection, and prevention systems, all of that, don't even come into play. Organizations with internet-connected networks use a host of security software to keep all of those hackers out of a network. But even for greater security, firms and government entities set up air-gap networks that aren't physically connected to the web. Though hackers need to be a little more creative in this instance, these networks are still quite vulnerable. As a first step, a hacker needs to embed malware into an air-gap network. This could be accomplished by using a malicious insider or simply selling a USB with malware loaded on it. You get the USB into the system. In 2008, for example, Ben-Gurion researchers said a United States military network was compromised after a foreign intelligence agency supplied an infected thumb drive to retail kiosk near NATO headquarters in Kabul, Afghanistan. I'm not making this up. Once the malware plants itself in the air-gap system, hackers' next step is to set up a channel of communication. And that's where the security cameras come in. Security cameras use infrared LEDs to see at night, right? Of course. And the researchers used this simple function to send and receive data to a white hat, a good guy hacker, standing in a parking lot in one demonstration. Computers rely on binary code of ones and zeros. We all know that. So researchers used a malware program that flashed a security camera's infrared LEDs on and off at specified intervals to relay binary signals that contained information about passwords, PIN codes, and encryption keys, anything really. The process also worked in reverse. The researchers used infrared light beams while standing in a parking lot to flash commands into the camera, which then decoded by the malware embedded in the system. Essentially, they established a two-way communication channel with a network that was off the grid. Yeah, their illuminating findings were published earlier this week on the server ARXIV. Now, this method of hacking networks is particularly troubling because many organizations that store sensitive information about customers have public parking lots. And further, infrared light is invisible to the naked eye. Nobody can see it, what makes it difficult for any passerby or security guard to spot anybody that's trying to pull this off. Exploiting the infrared lights on a security camera is just one of many ways hackers can breach air-gap networks. Their methods are at once, criminal, and they're downright ingenious. Hackers have used electromagnetic radiation from the computer screen and audio signals from a spinning hard drive or a fan to generate binary messages and transmit data. I'm not making this up. In one attack, hackers designed malware that sends signals by blinking the caps lock light into a camera. Yes, it can be used to relay information. It's absolutely incredible. I'm not unplug your computer. I just sneezed. Unplug your computer. Man, I hope nobody saw that. Do you see that on the camera? That will have to be edited out. Oh, that was gnarly. Anyway, air gap doesn't mean safe anymore. It doesn't. All right, now on to Facebook news. U.S. federal prosecutors have retreated from a high-profile court battle with Facebook, which threatened to impinge on social media's First Amendment rights. Now, I'm quoting here from court docs. The parties to this appeal, Facebook Inc. and the United States of America, jointly moved to dismiss the instant appeal as moot. On September 13, 2017, the United States moved to vacate the non-disclosure orders, the NDOs, that are the subject of the instant appeal. Earlier this year, prosecutors submitted warrants to Facebook for private information on 3 users, while also imposing a gag order on the social network from informing individuals about the investigation. Facebook lost the initial court battle, but it was later won on appeal. The public hearing in D.C. Appeals Court, Washington, D.C., that was due to take place this past Thursday was called off after federal prosecutors retracted the non-disclosure NDO requirement. Government lawyers asked their D.C. Appeals Court to dismiss the case, and the motion to vacate was granted by the Superior Court on the afternoon of September 13th. Arthur Spitzer, legal director of the American Civil Liberties Union of the District of Columbia, said, and I'm quoting, "Now that Facebook is free to notify these 3 users that their accounts are subject to a search warrant, we hope the users will contact us or other lawyers to challenge the government's attempt to conduct a phishing expedition through their Facebook accounts." Now, the bottom line here is this. The federal government wanted to get information from Facebook users just because. And they wanted Facebook to not tell the users that the government was there to get to their personal information. Facebook said no. Okay? Now, for whatever reason, and this negotiation was going on behind the scenes, this is my take. This was getting ready to go public in a big way, and everybody would have been outraged, and the government would have been attacked, and they should, and they should be, but they pulled it back. So now, if the government wants your personal information from Facebook or other social media, now that the precedent has been set, you should be notified from Facebook in advance that somebody wants your personal information in an investigation or otherwise. Think about that for a second. It's an absolutely monumental day that went down on September 13th. The thing is, and this is what I find very strange, the media did not cover this. It was under the radar. The press release was out there, and you had to go and find it. I did. And this is Fade to Black. I want to thank Phil Proctor, Firesign Theater. What a conversation tonight. This is one you're going to want to listen to again. And that's why you listen to Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Fade to Black's executive producer is Rita Kamarian. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Mark D. Kovar. Thanks to LJ3, Renee Jonas. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Bob. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vitola, Mark D. Kovar, Fady by Dale, Webmaster, Drew, The Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy, spaceboymusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network, and syndication is KGRA the planet. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2017 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Tomorrow night, right here, Maureen St. Germain, waking up in 5D. Until then, everybody be safe. Go Beckley Teppy.